The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Tuesday. We are in mid-June. It's going to be summer officially tomorrow. I can't even hardly believe that, but we're going to be with you for the next 3 hours live talking about topics having to do with autism and being the most effective, efficient member of your child's team. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, I know if you're watching this show, then there's somebody you love who has an autism spectrum diagnosis, and you want to be able to show up for them. You want to be able to help them to reach their highest potential. That's what we're here to do, is to help you to do that. We are like a clearinghouse of information. We're trying to help you to find the information that you want. I always say it's like, you remember the old days when you went to the library when you wanted information, back before Google and all the other search engines? You'd go to the library, and sometimes there were helpful librarians and sometimes there were less than helpful librarians, but the helpful librarian, you know, the happy, cheerful librarian who was always interested in whatever you were researching, you know, and you would always look for her to say, hey, where would I find the stack of books that has this, that, and the other thing? And she would go over to the books with you and be so interested in what you were talking about. She didn't know about all of it because she hadn't read every book in the library. That's who I aspire to be for you. I'm terribly interested in what you guys want to know. I certainly haven't read every book in the library, not even a third of them, right? But I have an idea, and I have a whole bunch of people that I can ask to know where we need to go to get the information that's going to help you on your journey through autism. So I just want to be upfront and say that a lot of what we talk about is ABA here because ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And it is effective for all of our kids. Whether you have a child who's mildly affected, you have a child who's more profoundly affected, ABA therapy is going to help your child to reach a different level, get closer to their highest potential, whatever that is. For all of our kids, that's different, right? Gosh, I can't help but say that there was a lot of chatter on my Facebook yesterday, just, you know, people putting their status, and it exhausts me sometimes because I think we, in our community, in the autism community, it's very frustrating what people know, what they don't know, what people are open to, what they're not open to, and there was just a lot of mudslinging yesterday. And I gotta tell you, this journey is different for all of us, right? If we could just accept that. I know that my personal experience as a parent with a child with autism is different than yours. And if it ever seems like I'm clueless about that, would you please write me and tell me, because I really am not, and I don't want to pretend to be clueless to that. Our kids are different. Our journeys are different. What we have access to is different. What our gut tells us is different. And I really think it's important for parents to follow their gut. But what I do know, and the science has demonstrated to us time and time again, is that when we give kids, all of our kids on the spectrum, the right amount of ABA therapy over the right amount of time and have it be quality ABA therapy, they're all going to make progress. So that's a great leveler, that if you're sitting there and thinking, oh, but you know, just not for my child, I got to tell you, that's something I hope you'll be open to looking at closer, because there are things that ABA can do for your child that makes your life easier, that makes their life easier, and nobody is closed out from it. So I hope that you'll stick around with us and use me as the good librarian. Tell me the kinds of things that you want to know so that I can go search it out. I did mention that that I am a parent. I'm not an ABA expert. I'm not a behavior expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a nutritionist or a lawyer. All those other things I could have gone to school for. I'm an ex-educator. I guess you can never be an ex-educator. But I was a teacher both in college and in high school and junior high school classrooms. And I am the mother of a now 9-year-old. Oh my gosh, how fast things go. He was diagnosed at the age of 2.5. He had the kind of autism that he regressed into it, that he was already verbal, vocal, speaking in sentences, and that all went away. And that came back through the practice of ABA. We had the best ABA therapy from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So if it seems like I'm their hugest fan, make no mistake, that's the truth. I am. They gave me my child back. And that is the truth too. My child is about to go into 4th grade and has been completely included since he was in kindergarten. And he's just fantastic. And we talk all the time about where he's going to go to college and how mommy's going to live around the corner. I just keep putting it in there like it's just fact so that I can get away with it. He asked me the other day, well, where's Dad going to live? I said, well, that's entirely up to him. If he wants to live with me around the corner, he can. So, we do what we can, right? But in any case, I didn't know that I was ever going to hear, Mom, I love you, or Mom, I'm mad at you, or Mom, I'm going to college. I didn't know that my child was ever going to understand the concept of what college was. And I have those things because of ABA. And so it is my personal mission to help you with whatever it is that you need help with, and most particularly helping you to find your way to get the proper amount of ABA, whether that's you need help with funding, you need help with finding an ABA provider, you need help with getting the tools for yourself so that you can be a part of that team. That's a really big part of my personal mission. And I want you to know that it's not just me sitting here. There's a whole host of people that we have access to that we can ask questions that can help us to find the answers for you. So there are lots of ways that you can participate and tell me what your questions are. One of them is if you're watching autism-live.com, you'll see that there above where I'm talking, it says these are either live or rebroadcast. If it says live, there's a box there that says your questions. You can type in your question there, hit enter, and it appears right here before me in real time. It's a really wonderful thing. If you are watching and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching us on any of the other forums that were available for free, you have lots of other opportunities to participate with us, and Emily's going to start to show some of those on the screen to you. First of all, there's email. Good old-fashioned, did we ever think we'd say that? Good old-fashioned email you can send to us from wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. We will get your email and talk about it in the next available live show. We will also send you a typewritten response. Frequently it comes from the person we got the answer from, so it's kind of fun who you might get sending you an email. Some very knowledgeable people. You can also phone us, and the phone line is open 24 hours a day. There are times that you'll have to leave a message, but if it's during the live show, you can even be patched in here and talk to the expert. We're going to have a great expert on later on today. Sienna Greener-Wooten is going to be with us, and if you want to call in and ask Sienna a question, you can. If you want to call in and ask me a question, you certainly can. If you want to make a suggestion or talk about something that's going on in your house, that's available to you. You can also Skype in with us, and if you have a camera on your computer and you're having a good hair day and you want to share it with us, right? Even if you're having a bad hair day, you could share that with us too. Certainly feel free to Skype in with us. We really enjoy it when we have an opportunity to talk to you guys at home. There are other ways you can get a hold of us. Facebook, we like to have you answer the question of the day on Facebook. A lot of you are really into that, and we enjoy that. We're going to have time later on today to show you the answers to today's question. And you can also tweet us. So we are available on Twitter. If there are other ways ways that you want to get a hold of us, please let us know, because it may be that we don't know about it, but there are those ways that are available to us. And we also, I mentioned that there are lots of different ways you can watch the show. You can be watching us here on autism-live.com, but you can also be watching us on Blip TV. It's free, and you can pause, rewind, search a topic, skip over something. Really fun, user-friendly way to do it. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Search different, I love that there are the interviews are cuts that you can just watch the experts if that's what you're into. You can also download the entire show, the daily show, on iTunes, and that's also a free download. There's no cost to you to do that. We love it when you give us reviews on iTunes. That's a really great thing for us. And we are also available on Ustream. As the show ends, the current show, the one that we've just been broadcasting, will start to play on Ustream, so that if you miss it, you can always catch us on Ustream, and we appreciate them having us there. So pretty amazing that we're in all of those places. I'm just lining up here. But if there's a way that you would like to see us that is not currently available, please let us know. We are so interested in your questions, but we're also interested in your suggestions as well. I always like to remind you that I gave up mind reading to be an autism mom, so I don't know exactly what you need, but if you tell me, I'll do my level best to get it for you. Feel very passionate about that. Now, we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of the day, I kind of think of it as a warm-up, you know, getting ourselves revved up. This is the time of the day when we pick one word, one phrase, one anagram, and pick it apart, give you an actual definition, and then give you a working definition so that we can see how these terms make sense within the context of our individual children. We have to make friends with the jargon. I know it's exhausting, isn't it? But once you start to understand one word and then another word and another phrase as it applies to your child, it really is kind of amazing how you start to enjoy the jargon in a way that you had not anticipated. It was not on your bucket list to enjoy jargon about autism or psychology or ABA, right? And yet, when you understand something and the lights go on and you go, oh, and you see how it can help your child, it does get exciting. So today's word is probe. Now, this is not, I mean, there are lots of different meanings to probe, right? It's not the space probe that we're sending out to Saturn. It's not the probe when we go to the doctor's office, right? But it does have similarities to that. So our actual definition is a test or assessment trial that allows the determination of which skills a person already has and which he or she does not have. All right, that's not a bad actual definition, but our working definition is testing your child out to see whether he or she already knows something or not. So, and the big difference with when we're probing and teaching, when we're teaching something, we want to do start with something usually that's called effortless learning, errorless learning, excuse me. So we want to give the answer to the child and reward them for getting it and make it as easy as possible for them to access the answer, right? That's when we're teaching. When we're probing, we are not going to give them the answer, and if they get it wrong, we're not going to correct them. It's kind of a quick little thing that we do to see if they know something. We're not going to reinforce in a big way when we're probing, because we're really trying to see, do they know it without big reinforcement? Because if they do, then we don't have to teach it, right? It's going to save us some time. So for instance, if I have a stack of flashcards and I'm working on labels of things, and let's say it's flashcards that have musical instruments on them, pictures of musical instruments, and I hold up a card that's a violin and I say to the child, what is it? And the child, you know, looks away, doesn't answer, or says it's a guitar. All of those are wrong answers, right? And I wouldn't go, no, it's a violin. I'm not teaching right now, I'm just probing. The child clearly does not know that this is a violin. That's okay. There's no reaction on my part whatsoever, and I'm going to put it in a pile of unknown stimuli, right? And then I might hold up the guitar and go, what is it? And the child says, guitar. And I go, good, you know, mild reaction, right? Or no reaction. But I'm not going to go, yay, it's a guitar, like I would when I'm teaching, right? So I go through a whole pile that quickly. What is it? The child says, it's a bassoon. good, and I put it in the pile, and there are some children who do know what a bassoon is at a very early age, but probably a fair amount of them, or all of them, are going to be in my unknown pile. In the best possible case scenario, I might 4 hours later or the next day go through those again to make sure that it didn't have something to do with the time, or that they were distracted, or it's most advisable to do probing twice, but you're going to follow your gut, right? If it's 100% clear to you that your child has no idea what a violin is, you're not going to waste your time or theirs by going through it again. Or if you're 100% sure that your child does know what a violin is, but they were distracted because there were things going on, you're going to make sure that you probe again before, right? It's common sense. We probe to see what we need to teach, because sometimes we don't know. I've said before that I'm a big fan of the skills program. I use skills at home, and in the skills, when you start skills, you have to take an assessment for your child, and you answer a bunch of questions, and they give you the option of yes, no, or probe. And so you'll see things on there that you have no idea whether your child can do it. I remember when I was taking it, there was one question, I think it was in the cognition curriculum, and it was about if you took 3 balls and stuck it into a paper towel tube, you put in a red ball, a yellow ball, and a red ball. A red ball, yellow ball, blue ball, whatever it was, and then you turned the tube around, could your child tell you what order the colored balls were in at that point? Could they reverse it in their head to do it? And I remember looking at that question and going, well, I don't know. I don't know if my child can do that. So I checked probe, right? And it goes to show a skill that if your child is able to reverse things in their mind and think it through. And so I went home and found something like that. I didn't have those colored balls. I had other things, and I didn't actually have a paper towel tube, but I had something else. And I did that with my child and probed it. And guess what? He could do it. And I tried it a couple of times, and he 100% had it. But at that moment in time, I was like, wow, I have no idea whether my son can do that. So I needed to probe it. That's going to come up time and time and time again. We don't want to guess, right? If you haven't actually seen the child demonstrate it, then how can you know? And I think a lot of times assuming can get us into trouble, right? So we probe. It doesn't take long. We don't make a big reaction to it. We don't want to go, no, honey, it's a violin, right? We don't need all that emotion. We just, no. And don't even say no, but just to yourself, no, and put it in the pile. What's this? Well, Then when we're teaching it, entirely different circumstances. If I'm teaching violin, I would put the flashcard down and say, give me violin. I'm telling the child it's a violin. Give it to me. And I might even physically prompt and go, yeah, it's a violin. Good job. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Right? So I'm making sure that I let them know that it's a violin because I'm teaching it. And probing, we're not teaching. We're just seeing if they already know it. So important to stay emotionally, no big reaction. All right, probing. That was our word for today. We also always have a question of the day for you. And our question of the day today, it's a little bit of a loaded question. How is parenting different than you thought it would be? This is that Holland story. I'm sure you guys have all heard that. It's a wonderful piece. We've read it before on the show, I believe, that a parent had written years ago about how you have this expectation that you're going to, I guess it's Italy or someplace like that you bought your tickets, you're going to Italy, you're excited, you bought the English to Italian dictionary, you're planning the sites that you're going to see in Italy, and you're really excited about it, and you get on the plane to go to Italy, and as you land, they go, welcome to Holland. And it is entirely a different place that you had not planned on going to. I didn't get the translation book for it. You don't have the proper attire for the weather, but you get off the plane and you start to notice that there are some really wonderful things in Holland. There's tulips in Holland, and there's clogs and all kinds of windmills and things like that. And you get used to the fact that you're living in Holland, and and that you're not in Italy. You make peace with that, but that it's a little bit of a shock in the beginning. And of course, the comparison being that, you're planning on having a child and you have an expectation of what it's going to go like. And then somebody says, welcome to autism land. And it's different, right? It's very different. But it's not all bad. It isn't all bad. And we all sort of come to that in our own way, different times during the day, right? Because there are times during the day where you go, this is all right, we're okay. And then there are times of the day where you go, no, really, it's not. But how is it different than you thought it was going to be? And of course, where I am right now, because my son graduated from his ABA program last year, almost a year ago, a year and like 2 weeks ago. And it's very interesting to me because I have to kind of look at it through two lenses, because when we were in the middle of ABA and when my son was so very profoundly affected by autism, parenting was so different from what I had anticipated. So different that a lot of times it took the wind right out of my sails. And I had some bitterness and some resentment. And there were times when I looked at other people and I asked that dreaded question that is that signal that things are not going well. How come this happened to us? How come everybody else has it so easily? And I've come to see over the years that, that old saying they say about how if everybody put all their troubles into the basket and passed it around, everybody would take their own troubles back. I'm in a place now where my son is doing so well that, of course, I would say, yeah, if I had the choice, compared to some of the things that people I looked at and thought, oh, they have it so well, I would still take mine back. But it was hard at the time. I have to be honest about that. It was really hard, and I had some anger and I had some resentment. And I wrote to write it out on the page and get rid of it so that it didn't fester as much as it could have, although it did a little bit. We just kept working. I kept saying, well, that is what it is, and we're just going to focus on what can we do today. And eventually, my son had so much progress. I'm so grateful for the ABA that he got and for the progress that he made. He worked really hard, and we as a family worked really hard, and I know you guys are too. And I do want to share that my life now, although my son is, he's still working on things. He does not have a recovered diagnosis, but autism is not the big part of my life anymore, except when I'm here, right? It's this big irony in my life that if I wasn't here doing this, I don't know how much the word would come up in my life, quite honestly. We function as a pretty typical family now. And the things that we deal with, I think, are pretty, I don't have much to compare it to, but I think it's pretty typical. And that's a really interesting thing that I had not anticipated. That's a lovely thing. If I could, would I like to rewind and go back to him being a 3-year-old and have this now? Yeah, I would. I really would. But I don't get to. And I've cried my tears over that I didn't have the 3-year-old happy-go-lucky, let's go sit in the field and look at the butterflies and count the butterflies in the field kind of moment that I had anticipated. I thought it was just going to be this luscious, lovely, me and my buddy go on these adventures and do things. And then I had a child that I couldn't walk down the sidewalk holding his hand, but I can now. And that's a luscious, lovely thing. Now I can walk down the sidewalk and we don't have to hold hands. And I know he's not going to run into the street, which there were years, let me tell you, when I believed that was never going to happen. But I have that now. And it's a lovely, luscious thing. But I'd love to hear from you. How is it different than you anticipated? I think it's more exhausting than I anticipated, but I think that's true of everybody. So you can write into us on Facebook, you can tweet to us, you can call in, you can Skype in. How is it different? And you know what? I encourage you not to edit. You don't have to be all hearts and flowers and roses for us. But the one thing I always ask is that, especially when you guys are interacting on Facebook, just try to be accepting of the fact that all of our experiences are different. I know I'm working on that, and I hope that you guys are too, because it's different for everybody, right? But how is it different than what you thought it was going to be? And we'll check in later to see what you guys have to say about that. We also always have a topic of the day. I believe this entire week our topic is going to be maintaining progress. For a lot of us, it's the beginning of a break in school where our kids are having less services, less time that's occupied, less time that's structured, right? And we want to maintain progress during that time period, and that's crucial and important, right? I also say that if we're going to maintain progress, let's make some extra progress, right? If we're going to take the time and put the effort in, let's not just maintain it, although bottom line is we need to maintain progress. But let's see if we can push ahead, get a little further ahead over the summer. A little secret that we can do. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that today and all this week. And to that end, there are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We have a motor tip coming up in just a few minutes that involves things that our children like to do over the summer. I know I'm going to come down on something that's, you may not like me. I know, that's so rare. And then other things to not like me about the healthy eating tip of the week. But I think this is a good one. I think you'll actually be thrilled with this one. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have our special guest, Sienna Greener-Wooten, is going to be with us. And she's going to be talking to us specifically about starting ABA. That if you're at that place where you're getting ready, giving you sort of the starting an ABA 101 class about what kinds of things you want to do to get mentally ready, what kinds of things do you want to do to get your house ready, what your expectations should be, what it's going to look like. Man, I wanted that so badly when it literally was 7 years ago right now that my son had turned 3. 7 years ago, 6 years, I think 7 years ago. And we were waiting to start ABA, and I kept saying, well, what do I need to do? Like, what do I need to go get? He was going to have his 3rd birthday, and I said, we might as well get gifts that are going to work for therapy. And I just kept bugging somebody like, and actually, Sienna Greener-Wooten, saying, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And so she's going to come in and give us all a little refresher course or a new course on what kinds of things to do and expectations on all of that. I'm really looking forward to it. So, and there's much more today too, including talking about the A word. So stick with us. We're going to be back with a motor tip about playing video games. I know. Stick with us. Well, today we're going to be talking about how to teach children to recognize other people's emotions. Why is that important to teach kids with autism spectrum disorders?
Children with autism have difficulty recognizing other people's emotions, and we as people generally do things or don't do things based on how other people react. And so it's really important to teach our children how to recognize the emotions of others so that they know how to behave or not behave. And so it's really important too that they start to pick up on how other people feel, because it will determine should they continue acting a certain way around children in a play group, or should they do things to make their parents happy or other family members happy. So it's very important that they become aware and recognize what different emotions look like.
So how do we go about teaching it?
So basically, we generally start with trying to recognize other people's emotions by doing it through a photograph or in a book or through pictures, because that's something that's a lot more salient or easier to identify than a person that might be right in front of me, because maybe there's a lot of distractions going on, or that everybody's going to express their emotions in a different way. But then you want to make sure that you're taking the time to go into real life, pointing it out, whether it's contrived, for example. So I say, hey, you two over there, I want one of you to be happy, and then I'm going to ask the child to see if they can recognize that emotion, because maybe something else is going on that's also making them happy, like you handed them a present. You want to make sure then that you start fading away from the contrivedness of it, so as it's actually occurring in real life, because a lot of times our kids have difficulty generalizing. And just because you teach it from a photo, or I sit here and I say, how do you feel, doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to transfer the skill. It's one of the primary deficits of kids on the spectrum is generalization. So it's very important that we're teaching it at different levels, because ultimately everything that we are teaching them, we want them to be able to use in everyday life. So that eventually we even lead up to, hey, if somebody's on the playground being mean to you, how is that going to make you feel? And they might say, well, it's going to make me angry. Well, what can you do about that in that situation? And then also eventually teaching them, this is what you can say or do in that situation. But again, rehearsing that just in having a conversation is not necessarily going to mean that the child is going to start exhibiting that skill. So what I might do then is, for example, let's say we're going on the playground, and I know that it is in the past been a time that the child might get mad at somebody because maybe a child on the playground often always wants a turn. And so I might say to the child, before we go on the playground, hey, if someone takes the ball away from you, what might you say or do? And so then I'm kind of priming them or coaching them before the situation occurs. That's still a prompt, but it's a step towards generalizing the skill in everyday life. But the goal then would be eventually that I don't have to remind them of that before the situation occurs. They will have the scenario occur to them and then immediately know the correct reaction or response that they need to give.
And I can't say it enough. It builds on so many other things. Being able to recognize your own emotions, taking other people's perspectives, understanding where they're coming from. So a really worthwhile thing to work on.
And absolutely, and especially too because it emerges so early. But it continues to develop for quite a long period of time too. So yes, a lot of skills that build on from recognizing emotions of others and also your own emotions as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California, and I'm going to talk a little bit about motor skills and video games. I know, have I lost my mind? No, in fact, I haven't lost my mind. And I want to start out by saying, motor skills are really important to our kids, right? I think we all can understand that. There are gross motor skills, which are the large motor, right? The things that when you're walking and you're reaching and you're kicking and standing and going upstairs, those are gross motor. Then we have the fine motor skills, which are the finger and hand skills. And then we have visual motor that's very important, and oral motor. We talked a little bit about oral motor yesterday and diction and how important it is to make it fun for our kids to be building those muscles that are going to help with articulation. Well, it's summer for a lot of us, and it's a time when we can really find opportunities outdoors to work on gross motor and fine motor. And I really want to make sure that I'm not making it sound like we should all stay inside and play video games. Do take your child outside. We've been talking about that all week long. Have them play in the water, have them use those muscles for gross motor. But we also always have to be thinking about what's really reinforcing for our kids and also what helps them socially, right? And I know for some of you, you're anti-video game and say, we're not doing that, we're not participating in that. Well, here's my case. I'm going to state my case here. That when your child is of school age and they're trying to make friends, most of the other kids are going to have some basis of general knowledge in video games. And if your child doesn't, it leaves out that really easy leap. Now, I'm not saying, I can just hear my mother saying, well, if all the other kids are jumping off bridges, does that mean that you do it too? No. But if we have something, and if we can make the playing video games extra special beneficial, and if we can make it educational at the same time, then really, why not? I remember years ago reading an article in Scientific America, I think is what it was. I should check on that. But it was a scientific magazine, and on the cover, it was a special episode about autism. And in it, there was an article about research being done on mirror neurons, that there's a place in the brain, and please understand that I'm not a researcher, so I'm going to oversimplify this. But in any case, there's a place in the brain that when they typically, like if somebody's watching the Olympics, because the Olympics are coming up, that those of us who have typically developing brains, if we're sitting and watching a swimmer in the Olympics, there's a part of our brain that will light up, that's a mirror neuron part of the brain that, even though we're not making the motion of the swimmer, there's a part of our brain that is experiencing that. You know how when somebody's skiing and your body is kind of doing things, you're getting involved? It's partially because there's mirror neurons in your brain that you're watching somebody do something and that part lights up. Well, oddly enough, when they did this research, they were looking at typically developing brains and looking at brains that had autism and seeing that the mirror neurons weren't lighting up in the same way that they were for the typically developing brains. And while no research had been done at that point, they were postulating the idea that perhaps things like video games where the child is seeing the avatar and doing the motion and is making the avatar move could help to potentially light up that mirror neuron part of the brain. Now, I don't know if research has yet been done on that. I know somebody asked about this a couple of weeks ago and said, has that research been done? And I still don't know whether it has been done. I assume not, because we've been looking and not seeing it, but that maybe somebody's in the process of it. But in any case, it made a certain amount of sense, and there were people who were telling me, families, that they had gotten a Nintendo Wii and gotten Wii Fit Sports, and that their children were at the very least becoming more coordinated because they found it reinforcing. So I don't know whether it helps with the mirror neurons at all, but you know, if we can get our kids moving, they find it reinforcing, and if there's the potential that maybe it makes them more coordinated, we're already in the neighborhood of what's so bad about this. And of course, there's the Nintendo Wii, and there's things like Wii Fit and Wii Sports, and there's a lot of core stuff that it works on, balance. And I've noticed with my son that he looks at it and he thinks he's doing one thing, but he sees the avatar on the screen doing something, and he realizes how much motion it takes to be able to balance. There's a thing, because there's a board, it tells him where his center of gravity is. It's very visual, and he finds that very reinforcing. There's even one game where they have to sit still and meditate, and there's a little candle that flickers that shows if their body is moving too much. It's really about self-awareness, and it counts time-wise to see how long they can sit still and be quiet. Ooh, what an exciting thing, right? And many, many, many other games. I'm just talking about Wii Fit. And if you have an Xbox or if you have a PlayStation 3, they have different, I've had the opportunity to look at all three a little bit, and they're all fun in different ways. And I think it's best for you to go to the store and try it out. Usually in places like Best Buy and other places like that, they have them all set up. You can take your child and say to the salesperson, I'm interested in doing this, but I want to see the kinds of things and see if my child finds it interesting. We were looking just last night at, I'm trying to think which one it was. It's the Kinect, which is for the Xbox. And they have dancing that you can do. And the thing that's really interesting about it is that it puts your image up there, but it makes you sparkle, which is pretty funny. And but there's something really nice about it. And you can do dance. So if your child is into dancing and mimicking somebody, there's a dancer, and you can do that next to them. And then, of course, there's the PlayStation Move, which has different things as well. So go to the store, take a look. If that's something that you're having trouble getting your child excited about moving, or if you're someplace where it's excessively hot and being outdoors for any length of time in the summer is difficult, still get the outdoor time, right? But if this is something that you have the potential to do in your home and that your child finds reinforcing, by the way, you can get these things on Craigslist and on eBay. You don't have to buy things that are new. There are even stores that sell gently used equipment. So it doesn't have to be that outrageously expensive. And I don't know anybody who buys the games new. You can get the used game and get a discount and trade games. And so don't spend a fortune. But if it's something that your child finds reinforcing, it'll get them moving. Woohoo! And it gets them, it does not only the gross motor, but does fine motor with the controllers. And we can't deny that that's a part of our culture now, and that they will get general knowledge about playing video games and have a social context in which to talk about those things with our kids. So I know, isn't it crazy? I'm advocating some video game playing, but with restraint. I mentioned yesterday that my son, who finds video gaming all too rewarding, is not allowed to play anything until noon. And there are still other things, academic things, that have to be worked on. So if he doesn't have those things done, even at noon, he can't play video games. Those are our rules. You need to come up with what works for you. But it's entirely possible that there is a game out there that can help your child with core strength, can help your child with balance, which is all part of core strength too, and with gross and fine motor, and potentially even some of the visual motor stuff. So you gotta love that. Just check out the video games. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we have our healthy eating tip of the week, which I think is gonna be a really good, refreshing summer thing to do. So stick with us.
I am grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope.
They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
When everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I was just bringing up Facebook so I could look at some of your responses to today's question, and somebody posted a quote that says, "You know your life has changed when going to the grocery store by yourself is a vacation," and it's signed Motherhood. That just tickled me pink, because isn't that the truth? Oh, I get to go to the grocery store by myself. Yeah, a vacation. You know, and it goes hand in hand with what we're about to talk about, the healthy eating tip of the week. I do advocate as much as possible. I do appreciate getting to go to the grocery store by myself, and that is a vacation for me. But I also advocate taking your child to the grocery store or the farmer's market or wherever it is that you go to buy, especially your fresh fruit and veggies, and ask them to help you pick them out. That is not the tip of the day, but I do advocate that. Make it as fun as possible. Ask them, you know, kids respond to color a lot of the time, and ask them, you know, what color do we want to eat? We always say in our house, let's eat the rainbow. So what are we going to eat this week that's part of the rainbow? And but my tip today is that over the summer is an ideal time, wait for it, to reduce the amount of sugar that is in our children's diet. I know I said that you were going to like this tip, right? So how could I have gone completely wrong? Well, hear me out. So if we're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in our children's diet, let's start by reducing the amount of white processed sugar, not all sugars. It's a great time to take the white sugar out and put the fruit sugar in instead, because fresh fruit, really sugar plentiful fresh fruit, is abundant right now. It's cheaper than any other time of the year for most of us around the world, and you can get it in more places. It's convenient, right? And you don't have to do a whole lot to prep it. So instead of, you know, making a pie or making a cake or doing something like that, you can hand over a fresh nectarine that is just dripping with sugar, but healthier and metabolizes easier in a child's body. And one of the things that we like to do in our house, because my son's still with fruit sugar, we have to monitor that because it makes him behave like a drunk, really. He just doesn't metabolize it well. So what we do a lot in the summer is make fresh fruit popsicles. And it's something that we did on the show during our Valentine's cooking segment this year. So if you want to search that, you can see how we did it with, I think we did it with raspberries and strawberries so that they were red for Valentine's Day. But especially in the summer, this time of year, we love to make blood orange popsicles. We do a thing for the 4th of July where we layer red, white, and blue, that we'll do a little bit of coconut milk, and we do it without any sweetener. But, you know, you could choose to do something else if you wanted to, or we take white peaches or sometimes coconut milk with white peaches and put them in it's for one layer in the popsicle. You can do for red, think about it, you can do raspberries, you can do strawberries, you could just do blood orange juice, which is just bright, brilliant red. And then for the blue, we usually do blueberries and things like that. But think about all the different things that you could put into a popsicle. We went and got the popsicle molds, and we made sure that they were BPA free. And ours are shaped like rockets because my son is so into rocket ships. And we have a ball with that. And I put a little bit of fruit, a little bit of juice from something, and then I put a little bit of flavored, not with a NutraSweet or anything like that, but just plain flavored. It has essence of something, bubble water in it too. So it's a little bit bubbly, which I don't know if that makes a difference when it freezes, come to think of it. But I'll take like a lemon flavored seltzer water, we call it bubble water in our house, and mix that in. So it's not all fruit. And they're tasty, I gotta tell you, and they're beautiful and they're vibrant. It's the kind of thing that when we have guests over and their kids over, I give them one of those popsicles and they're thrilled. And especially if the fruit is cut up and there's still chunks of it in there, because when you get a store-bought popsicle, you know, it's a lot of sugar and it's a lot of artificial food coloring and things like that. It's just a bunch of stuff that our kids don't need. And you know, you can always tell if something is really good by the reaction of a child who is not forced to have these things in their diet. And I love to watch our friends' kids come over and eat a popsicle, and they'll be sucking on it, and then they get to a piece of raspberry or a piece of peach or a piece of plum. Plums are plentiful right now, and they're very juicy and tender in a popsicle, and they're like, wow, it's like hidden treasure. So it's very refreshing. It's a wonderful thing. You can do it with almost any kind of fruit. So you go and get what's in season. Of course, you know, I'm a big fan of getting it organic if you can, and now's a great time of year to get it organic because it's going to be almost the same price organic as it is for the regular. If you shop in the right places, especially like a farmer's market, it's really going to be the same price. So make some popsicles, cut up some fresh fruit, make a fruit salad, and get your child involved in doing it. Make a rainbow fruit salad and go to the store and have them help you pick it out. It's a great time to get off of all that processed white sugar and have everybody feel better. And then in the fall, you can kind of, you know, keep that going and nobody kind of notices that it's missing as much. I'm not saying cold turkey, but, you know, I'm not saying totally get rid of chocolate, but see if you can't whittle it down. Change the percentage on what's happening and have it be healthier. That's our healthy eating tip for the day. Also want to remind you there's a couple of other things that have been going on the last couple of weeks, and this week in particular. The speed gamers are active right now. This is, I think it goes through Thursday. It's their marathon. Friday. It goes through Friday. Thank you, Emily. So all this week, it started last Friday night, and so I guess they're going to do a full week. It's a Pokemon marathon, and I did just Facebook about it. So finally, I kept saying I was going to do it all day yesterday. I never got around to it. I'm bad. But in any case, this is a group of young people who are playing video games for a benefit. And the benefit in this case is Autism Care and Treatment Today. ACT Today, the wonderful, wonderful nonprofit organization that helps to give grants to families for the things that they actually need. Now, you can support the Speed Gamers by going to www.thespeedgamers.com, and you'll see that they have this very interesting screen, and you can see the kids playing video games. But take a look at the chat on the side, because somebody will write in and ask them to do something in the video game, and these kids are just shameless. I just love them because they go, well, you know, will you pay $5 to do it? And it's not $5 that they're pocketing, it's $5 that goes towards autism treatment for children. You gotta love that, right? So take the time, support them. You can donate if you want to, as small increments as $1. But if you don't have $1 to give, don't feel bad about that, but go to their site, give them a couple of minutes on the site so that it helps them with views, and then also share it. Share it on Facebook, tweet about it, use your group of friends and let them know about it, because if somebody wants to donate $1, that goes a long way. It really does. It really adds up. I haven't checked it this morning, but I know last night they had raised over $25,000. So I got to look this morning and see how much money they've raised, but please help those speed gamers. And also, just following two of our other stories that we've been talking about, we had Sean Colton on last week, and he's an awesome autism dad who has gotten together with a friend of his who's an illustrator, and he's creating a book called Legends of the Boo Monster. And the Boo Monster is based on, it's a mythical fantasy character based on his son who has autism. And it's this really lovely story, you guys. I'm just so Twitter-pated by the whole thing. I just love it. We're able to announce right now this morning, because we've been asking you guys to donate on Kickstarter, that he was trying to raise $5,000 so he could get this book done. And I'm told that as of this morning, he has reached his goal. I just can't tell, I want to weep about that. I'm so excited about that for him. But congratulations to Sean, and congratulations to all of us, because we're going to be able to, probably around Christmas time, put this book in our children's hands. So we'll have to see if we can get Sean on the phone a little bit later today to hear his thoughts on the fact that he made his goal. Woohoo! And thank you all for supporting that project. Also want to remind you that you still have another, 10 days in which you can vote for the movie Not Forgotten, The Untold Story of Autism in the Ukraine. You can go to their site. It's on the screen for you, www.notforgottenthemovie. This is a documentary that they have already shot the film on it, done interviews with experts and families in Ukraine who are affected by autism, and it's devastating, you guys. They are so far behind where we are in terms of autism. Socially, they're so far behind. You want to talk about autism awareness. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't legal to diagnose a child with autism, so you can imagine what the services are like there and how much help and support they need. Well, The film has been shot, and they just need some funds to finish editing, and they're also looking for some funds to be able to translate books about autism and about treatment for autism for professionals and families in Ukraine. So if you go to www.notforgottenthemovie, there is a place there, a link that you can click on. It'll ask you to log into Facebook. Once you do log into Facebook once, you don't have to do it again. You can vote every single day, and they only need to come in either first through sixth, right? Any place in there, they'll be able to get this film done. If they come in first, though, they will be able to translate those books. A really important venture, and it doesn't cost you a single penny. So please support that with your time. And we're so thrilled that you supported Sean Colton, that it's a reality now. That book is going to be made, and I'm very excited about that. All right, it is time. It's that time of the day for us to view the A Word. This is the really, I think, amazing ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I love this because it really charts what it is like for a family to go through the process of ABA. I think it's one of those experiences that until you've seen it or been there, it just is this amazing thing you hear about and you don't really understand. And this documentary, in a very short period of time, you can watch clips and see the arc of what happens with ABA, how a child will learn one skill and you go, what is that going to do for that child? But then it goes together with another skill that you also look at and go, all right, I don't get that, until you get like 8 or 9 of them together. Excuse me, and you have a child who's speaking in sentences because they now have these little threads that we're missing that you can knit together into the sweater that is language. It's really fascinating to watch this little boy as he progresses and grows, but also to watch this family, to see what it's like as parents to cope with my child is changing and all the things that feels like. My life has changed, the way my house has changed. I have all these strangers in my house and telling me that I need to do this in terms of parenting. When did parenting become a committee? And yet the progress is there. The progress is there, and it's undeniable. And I love this lovely family because they're being so honest with us about the frustration and the fear and the joy and the hope. And when hope is diminished and when hope returns, it's just a lovely thing. So let's take a look at what's happening with Jack Riley this week, because he's being introduced to a new therapist. And I particularly want you to pay attention to the fact that this therapist makes some mistakes. They're not life-shattering. You and I are going to make mistakes too, but take a look at the sense of humor that she maintains about it and the earnestness with which she's trying to learn how this particular child learns, because this is what we all want to adopt. So here it is, the A Word.
Whoa, happy feet there. Are you excited? Wow. Can I have a kiss? Thank you. He did tell Miss Miriam yesterday that he said poopies. She came and got me. We looked, there was none there, so we thought he was telling us stories. And 2 minutes later, there were. Oh. Wow. You did it, didn't you? That's exciting.
She's always a new therapist and is having an overlap with Jessica. She will be doing fieldwork training until she is ready to independently work with a child. In order for She's Away to work independently, she must first pass a theory-based test, which is her knowledge of autism, and then second, she must pass a field evaluation, which is an overlap where she applies what she has learned.
So I want to do actions, then it looks like they're just doing maintenance right now.
Do the ones that he already has mastered.
And that's in a separate bag, okay.
Yeah. And then you would just be asking, what is the little boy doing? The boy is playing. Okay. It should be his answer.
Okay.
Jack Riley, my name is She's Away.
Say, hi, She's Away.
Hi, She's Away.
Oh, very good. Give me a high five. Yeah. Okay, so, Jack, what would you like to do after we do a program? Would you like bubbles?
Puzzle.
Oh, puzzle? Okay, we can do puzzle.
Since we're using the puzzle as a reinforcer, don't give it to him yet
right.
until
you do the program. Because now he's like, well, I already got the puzzle, so
why should I?
Why should I work?
What is the boy doing?
He's sitting.
Yeah! Oh, good! One sticker. What is this man doing?
What's it do?
Yeah! What is she doing?
He's kicking.
Yeah!
Hey, good job.
What is he doing?
He's spider positive.
Yeah, that's great.
So bring up some other ones.
He's spider.
What are they doing?
She's hugging.
Yes, they're hugging.
Are you taking data as you're going along?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is he doing?
He's sweeping.
Oh, yeah, you're so good.
He's sweeping.
So make sure you write the
The
stimuli, too.
yeah.
It's like, I don't want to take too much time. Should I just be quick with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, they're playing. Good job, Jay.
Playing a box.
They are playing blocks. You're so smart.
What is he doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, another one.
He's playing blocks.
He's playing blocks too.
He's playing a car.
He's playing cars. That's right.
What is she doing?
He's playing.
Yeah. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, you finished. Good job, Jack Riley. Give me high fives. Can you do high fives? Yes. Okay. You ready to play with your puzzle? Okay, here.
Where's the cow? Where's the cow? Oh, good job. What does he say? What does the cow say? What is he?
Moo.
Hi, monkey. You want a pillow sandwich? Okay, go get me the pillows. Will you show Shiza the way how we do your pillow sandwich?
I want to see this pillow sandwich.
Okay, ready? One. Hold on. Can you let go? Hold on. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Squash! Pillow sandwich. It's a pillow sandwich. And here we get there's a lot of opportunities for him to ask for things. Like if he wants more of jumping, more of pillow sandwiches. It's called man training.
Oh.
So what we're doing is we're giving him frames because he knows that I want and give me.
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to teach him a new frame, which is can I have something. So how we prompt him is something that he really, really wants, like, pillow sandwiches or having you pick him up or something.
Okay.
And I've been prompting him with a partial verbal with just the cup, and he knows to say, can I?
Okay.
So, I mean, we could track that later, but this is just one of the opportunities that you can use to to do that program. Do you want more? Then you say, can I? Yes, you can have pillow sandwich. Come here. Crash! Ask her, say, can.
Okay, come here, let me see you. Oh, how fun is that?
I'm sorry, it's impossible to watch that and not smile, right? To see a child laugh and to see a child asking for interaction, right? How gorgeous is that? And this wasn't a child who was asking for interaction. This wasn't a child who was necessarily reinforced by interaction, right? He was into things. But if you go back and watch from the beginning, you see how they didn't just arrive there, right? This has been hard fought for. He put in the time, the therapist put in the time, the parents put in the time, but you get to this place where here is this child who says, I want more pillow sandwich. Oh, let's all celebrate, right? Of course, there's more to come, much more to come. But, you take these little things as they come and go, wow, look at the progress. It's hard when you're in the middle of it. I was saying the other day, because I did get to meet the family for the first time in person. It was so funny because I felt like I knew them. I'd never met them before. I'd never laid eyes on them before, but I watched the episodes and I said, thank you so much for doing this because when I was experiencing it, when my child was going through therapy like this, a lot of it whizzed by me, and I had so much fear and concern about where are we going to end up, that it was really hard for me to be in the moment. And I kind of remember a friend saying to me that, you know, she had her first child who was typically developing, and then she had her second child, and she said to me, don't have an only child, Shannon, because you don't get to appreciate all the things, the milestones of things that happen with your child, because you're so worried. Is my child going to walk? Is my child going to do this? Because I'm a worrywart mother anyway. And she said that with her second child, she just appreciated all of the little milestones, right? Well, I had my child, and my child stopped making milestones and regressed. And, you know, and we talked about having another child, still talk about adopting, but it just hasn't happened. And so I haven't been able to appreciate some of the things that we went through and how the milestones were met, because I was so busy while the milestones were being met. And I was saying thank you, because I'm getting to relive what we went through, and to see, and when Jack Riley does something, I'm like, yes, this is so wonderful, because I know, having been there, what it leads to, and it's amazing. It's just so exciting. So I encourage you to go back and watch from the beginning and realize that, you know, his progress is his progress. It's different than my son's. It's different than your child is going to be. But I can tell you, it's I recognize this. This is what happened in my household to a large extent. The furniture is different. The players are different. But the lessons are largely the same. And by the way, they're the same lessons that are available in skills. And how we apply them changes, because our kids learn in different ways. But that's the beauty of having that tool chest of the ABA tools, knowing how to apply them and then being creative with them so that it fits the individual child and we see the results. It's just luscious. And you know, we know that this child has a team, right? We've seen when he's in clinic that Jessica is not his only therapist, right? But for the purposes of filming, Jessica is the therapist that they mostly film. But here we have a new therapist who's come, and they're doing something called an overlap, which is so important regardless of how you're doing ABA. You should be having regular overlaps, especially when there's somebody new on the team, but regular overlaps anyway. Everybody on your team is not going to be equal and even. Their knowledge and their experience couldn't possibly be equal and even. And their skill set of being able to apply these tools in a really creative way, of course, is going to be different. And this is something that I'm always talking about, that, you know, we're on that team too. And I never want to be the weakest person on the team. I don't know about you, but I'm always running to catch up. I want a team of rock stars, and a lot of times we did have a team of rock stars, and I would always be the parent running to catch up and picking their brains to know what they knew, because I knew the day was going to come when they weren't going to be there anymore. As much as I didn't actually believe it, I knew the day was coming, and that day is here. And now it's on me and my husband, right? So I wanted to have my skill set. But you see that here you've got the more experienced therapist with the new therapist who is there, and she's had some basic training. She did CARD e-learning, and she had some basic training here at CARD. And now she's there, though, to put it in practice. And I really want you guys to notice and be gentle with yourselves and notice that she doesn't have it perfect on the first day. Now, is that a scary thing for a parent? Well, in the beginning, sure. You know, you want all these experienced therapists, but it's really good for new blood to come on the team. And it's really good for you to make peace with the fact that your team is going to change, because it's a good thing. I know, you know, having gone through it so many different times, we would have a really awesome team assembled, and 3 different times during the year the team would change a little bit, and sometimes a lot. And we'd just get to a point where everything was cooking along, and I knew what the schedule was, and I knew the therapist knew him, and we were seeing progress, and then it would be time for the schedule to change, and I go, no. But looking back, it was a really good thing that the schedule changed, because as I said yesterday, our kids have to generalize. It's so important that they be able to do these skills with different people at different times, with different stimuli, so that when they get into the real world, they can apply real knowledge. Just, this is a skill I learned by rote working with this person. So having different personalities come into the house, while it can be anxiety ridden, it's really quite lovely when you look at the end result. So here they've got this new therapist whose name Can you believe that this child, she says, hi, and I believe she's saying she's away now. Yesterday I was saying she's a link, but the child does it better than I do. This is progress for him, not for me. It's okay, but it's not an easy name. It's a complicated name, but he doesn't even balk at it and spits it out and she says yes, and he's very reinforced by that. In any case, we see how an overlap works, that the senior therapist is showing what she does and then gives the younger therapist, not necessarily younger, but younger in terms of experience, the opportunity to try it. And she doesn't get it perfect, but nothing is ruined, nothing is spoiled. Really important to realize that you are going to make mistakes. And some of them are going to be little mistakes, some of them are going to be big mistakes. But the therapist very gently says to her, I love the example of, she sits there and does a wonderful preference assessment, A+ on the preference assessment. Jack Riley, do you want to play with bubbles or do you want I want the puzzle. Oh, good, you can play with the puzzle. And she gives it to him. And then Jessica, the senior therapist, says, you know what? You got to keep the puzzle and then make him work for it because you just gave him his paycheck and he didn't put in a day's work yet. She goes, oh, no, I did, didn't I? And clearly she knows that wasn't what she was supposed to do, but she blew it. She laughs about it, smiles about it. It's not the end of the world because the next time she's going to do a little bit better. We see that she struggles with the stimuli and doing it in the right time and taking the data. It's like juggling. It's like juggling polar bears the first couple of times you do it. But with practice, she's going to get better at it, and you will too. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that she turns out to be a fabulous therapist. This is not for everybody, right? We don't have the choice. We have to be good at this. But for everybody, this is not the job of choice. But I think she's going to be a fabulous therapist simply because when it was brought up to her that she did something and didn't do it right, she had a sense of humor about it. And I think that's a really important hallmark of a good therapist. So we'll see in the coming weeks if we have the opportunity to see this therapist. And she may not end up being somebody on Jack Riley's team. There were a lot of times when therapists would come to our house for an overlap or to do their field evaluation, and we were always we had that happen a lot because as a family, we had said that we were fine with that. I thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn because I would be watching on the monitor and be listening to everything the therapist, and I learned some of the fine points of how different therapists did things. I remember Peter Farrig, who we have to get back in the studio, who I refer to him as the autism whisperer and made a huge impact on my child's life. And he would train people all the time. And Peter would train me too, but there would be something about listening to him on the monitor train a new therapist, and I would pick up the greatest tips of how to do things, not just with my child, but in general. Oh, I just would sit glued to it because I so enjoyed it. And things that Peter wouldn't necessarily think to tell me or that I wouldn't think to ask, and the therapist would say, how did you do that? And I'd go, oh, good, that's a good question, and perk up and listen. So we were always willing to have people come and do overlaps and to do their field evaluations, because the field evaluation is when the therapist, they've had, I think it's like 10 times that they've been able to go into the field and work with children, and now they have to run a session with the senior therapist, evaluating them, watching them. I can't even imagine the stress for these poor therapists. And they're supposed to run the whole session beautifully, and if they do it right, they get a passing score, and then they get to work with children on their own. And it was always interesting to me to see the field evaluations and to allow for them. And all the therapists that did their field evaluation with my son didn't necessarily become members of our team, but I'll tell you what else. My ulterior motive was if they were doing field evaluations, then I got to know all of the new therapists, and so I knew who to request and say, we loved this person. Can we have this person on the team? Oh, shameful. I'm giving away my secrets. But in any case, it helped me to know who the different therapists were and the different ways in which they approached my child, which helped me to be a better person on my child's team. So we'll see what happens with this news. It's a part It's a part of it. You have to have room for training. And by the way, if you don't have new people coming in, it's still great to have overlaps, because you will see over time that, for instance, we used to do overlaps with me and overlaps with my husband, that my husband would say, I don't know how you get the compliance that you do. You know, what is it that I'm doing wrong? And I'd say, oh, great time for an overlap. And the therapist would come in, and Dad would be with it, and they would do one-on-one, showing Dad, okay, this is the way this works, demonstrate it for him, then have Dad do it and build his skills, because who wants to be the weakest member of the team, right? But somebody always will be, and what a great thing to have whoever is good, whether it's you or your senior therapist, spend a little extra time with that therapist, because people get better when we give them the tools, right? It's not about just firing the therapist and saying, well, you're not as good as the other one. It's about helping them to become better. That investment of time is always going to be worth it. Always. Okay, so watch the A Word and watch as it all unfolds. You can go back and watch the first episode and see when this child had just been diagnosed and hadn't started ABA, and see how different this little boy who says, I want more pillow sandwich, please, right? Lovely, just luscious. And you can also watch further ahead, because we're not up to date with where the episodes are. So if you want to sneak ahead, you can, but I like to watch it and take it apart because it's really awesome. Okay. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to look at your viewer responses to the question of the day, but I want to remind you a couple of things. Sienna Greener-Wooten is going to be with us at the top of the next hour talking about starting an ABA program, what your expectations are. You can call in and ask her a question. We also had a question in the night that somebody wrote in about pill swallowing. So we're going to ask Sienna to also address that as well, because there's some really nifty tricks about pill swallowing, so stick with us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something, and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Yes, it's true. I unabashedly love the Home Depot because this Kids Workshop thing is so fabulous, you guys, and I really want to encourage you to take advantage of it in whatever way is good for you and your child and whatever it is that you're working on. But first Saturday of every month, we're going to have July coming up, and I'm going to remind you about it. You can go there on Saturday morning. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to sign up for it. You don't have to fill out a paper and register. You don't have to be online to register for it. Your child goes. is they will greet them with an apron and then sometimes a pair of goggles, and they'll give them a hammer or a screwdriver, right? And they have tables set up. A lot of times in the summer it's outside, but it's in the morning, so it's still cool enough, hopefully, and they get to be side by side with other kids and put together a craft. Or if your child can't handle it sensory-wise in the beginning, they'll let you take the craft home to do it. But I'll tell you what's really reinforcing about having them stay and get through the sensory of the hammers is if they put it together there, they have a paint station. And the child can go and paint the craft. And sometimes they have something else. Like in this instance, when we went, they were building the cars and they had a track so the kids could race their cars. Oh my gosh, they had so much fun. They just loved it. So, and it's usually a craft that has something to do with the month, so it helps you to be watching the calendar. It helps them to know that it's Saturday, that it's summer. During Mother's Day, they had a Mother's Day craft, and you know, it's just a lovely thing, and it's free. It's an opportunity for your child to work on fine and gross motor skills. It's an opportunity to work on sensory skills. It's an opportunity to work on social skills. They can be working on reading because each craft comes with an instruction sheet that has both pictures and words so that they can be working on reading. My son has been doing this since he was 4, and it's so interesting because when he was 4, can we just talk? He had no idea how to hold a hammer. He had no idea. And I used to despair. I used to think, oh, really? Is he ever going to get to the place when he understands that you have to put a certain amount of energy in a certain direction on the hammer? I must be teaching it wrong. You know, but my son totally can do that now. And I can guarantee you that had we not been going to these workshops, that would not be the case. So, and he loves it. He talks to the other kids that are around him and says hi. And there are kids that are there of different and varying abilities, but it's a really fun thing and it's free. So you gotta love Home Depot for that. Their kids workshop Saturday mornings, the first Saturday of every month at every Home Depot. And the kids get to keep the apron. The first time they'll write their name on it. They're supposed to bring it back when they come back, but if you forget, they give you another apron. I'll tell you what. They're not chintzy about that. And they get a pin that has, it's very glossy and has the actual craft that they completed. That's their reinforced. I'm telling you, somebody knows ABA over at Home Depot. And they get a certificate that says that they finished the craft. And lots of learning opportunities while they're there. So go to Home Depot, bring your kid, wherever, they're very accepting, wherever your child is in terms of skill set, they're very accepting. So love that Home Depot. Okay, I promised you that we were going to do the viewer response today. We had one person who tweeted in and said that, well, first of all, the question of the day was, how is parenting different than you thought it would be? How is parenting different than you thought it would be? And somebody tweeted in and said that they were really disappointed to learn that in the United States was against treating their child with autism if they weren't independently wealthy. And I know that that is really the case, or was the case, in a lot of places in the United States for quite a long time. Change is coming. Change is a-coming, and it's in 30 states right now that there's insurance reform, which even in those 30 states, let's be honest, doesn't cover everyone. We're not at that ideal place yet. But there is movement, and I want to remind you that if you're having trouble finding the funding to be able to treat your child, especially with ABA, would you please write in and let us know where you are and what your questions are so that we can see if we can help you. To let you know where you are, what kinds of services are available to you, what kind of funding is available to you. It isn't the same everywhere. I don't understand that. It hurts my mother's heart that it's not. You know, I live in the great state of California, and I was surprised when my child was diagnosed to find out that if I was willing to go through the proper channels and fight for it, it wasn't like it just got handed to us. We were able to get our ABA program fully funded. Fully funded. Now, it was still financially devastating to us because one parent had to be home at all times. So our income was literally halved. So it was still financially devastating. But you know what? I knew how lucky we were, because there were a lot of states, still a lot of states, where that wasn't the case. Now, California has insurance reform that's going to be starting in just a few days, and it's just in the nick of time, because the way that we were funded is no longer available. People, the state's out of money, unfortunately, and insurance is coming just in the nick of time, but everybody is not covered by insurance. So very important for people to know what the rules are in their state, what the rules are with their individual provider. And I'd like to be able to help you with that, because it's difficult. And please know that it's not me that's going to be looking it up for you, because I couldn't even figure it out with my own insurance. I needed help, but we have a team of people here that can help you, and we really want to do that. So write in and tell us if you're having that problem. Another person wrote in on Facebook and says, sometime, in order to go full circle, you have to parent other people's children too. Yes, that was disappointing to find out too, that there are people who just don't choose to parent, or don't think that parenting their child to be polite and to answer your child is even something that's important. I can remember so many times that we would work and work and work on DTT for my child to be able to recognize that a person had come in the room and to say hello to them appropriately and start a conversation appropriately. And then we would take it into the natural environment and we would try to work out of there. And then we'd go to some place where there were kids everywhere, and my child would engage with a child and do it in the proper way, and the child would ignore him and the parent would let them. And I would think, really? Can you help me out here a little bit? And a lot of times I would say that. I would say, you know what, could you do me a favor? Here's what's going on in my house, and my child's working on that, and your child just ignored my child. Could you get them to say something back? Or would you mind if I prompted your child to say back? I'm not trying to be pushy here, but and usually people were really good about it, going, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and how rude of me. And I would think, yes, yes, how incredibly rude of you. But then they would step it up at that point. But yeah. Another person who wrote in and said, the emotional aspect is much harder than I thought it would be, not only with my twins and stepkids, but when I see other kids struggle. Boy, isn't that the truth? I tell you what, and honestly, I was just about to say that I think it has changed a little bit as my son has done better, that it's actually gotten worse for me, but I don't know. Whenever I see a child struggle to get something, it just rips me apart. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's a child who's struggling to remember how to speak, or it's a child who's remembering how to walk. It just, just tears me apart, makes me a mess. But I have so much, what's the word that I want? I am so in so much awe of these kids and how hard they work. Somebody posted on Facebook a couple of weeks ago about a little boy who lost his legs, and they had lined up all of his different fake legs and taken a picture with him. And I just thought, there are so many kids who are running around and have no idea about what this child must have gone through to get to the point and to be able to get used to all these legs and to say, I'm not going to let this stop me. I just have so much respect. Respect is the word that I was looking for. I'm looking at some of these other, responses from somebody. I just don't want to say the child's name. That one person says, when my son, who has autism and has a major blowout that lasts hours, this is when I feel the most hopeless and angry. I think we can all relate to that. That this disease exists with no concrete explanation of origin. Then I see people with their normal kids and their tantrums, and suddenly autism isn't so bad. Isn't that the truth? And thank you for your incredible honesty, because our children have tantrums, and for us it's like being on a cliff. It's the edge of nowhere where we just, I know that's true for me, and I know some of you have written in and said that too, where it just feels like, oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. And yet people who have children who don't have autism, they still have tantrums, and the difference is they don't feel like it's going to last for the rest of their lives. And I think, you know, one of the big pluses for us is that through ABA and my son getting functional communication skills, that he really has functional communication skills. And whoever his spouse is just owes ABA a great hug and a kiss, because he communicates. He communicates. And I think I've shared this before, that we went to Disneyland, I think it was last fall, and we were there with friends who have a couple of different families who have completely typically developing children, all boys. I don't know how that happened. But over the course of 2 days at the park with 3 other families, we saw a moment when all of the kids, except for my son, completely melted down. And I think, you know, Disneyland, that's the expectation. I think I melted down once. But not my child, not my child. It's sensory overload, right? It's a lot of different things, and, you know, just being bombarded by sensations. And at some point, you know, people, whew. And there was one moment in particular where one of the other kids just burst into tears and just fell apart. And my son looked at me and he said, "Why is he crying?" And I said, "Well, you know, he's having some emotions about this, about he's disappointed about this and he's overtired." And he says, "But why didn't he just not say that?" And I hugged him and I was like, "Because everybody doesn't know how to say that. Mommy's still working on learning how to say that when she feels it." Just hugging him and going, but he goes, "But you know, everybody tells me I have to say it." I said, "That's absolutely true, you do. But we all are not as advanced as you are," which he then loves, right? So it is amazing. By the way, ABA works for all of our kids, not just on the spectrum, that we could do that same set of lessons with those children, and then they would be able to say, you know, "I'm really tired and I'm frustrated and I'm not feeling very good right now. I think I need a break." I'm learning how to do that. So another person wrote in and said, "I'm guessing you mean parenting an autistic child. It is different, in fact, that my child cannot communicate his needs or wants. I have to trust my intuition and pay close attention to the little things like facial and body expression. I can tell some things by the look in my son's eyes. He's very expressive with his eyes. It gives me a much closer bond with my child, though since we don't use words to talk. It's something I don't have with anybody else. My little son is such an angel." And I love that you have that bond and that you're finding the good things that come with this. It is my hope and my prayer that you are also continuing to work on functional communication skills, that we know that all of our children are not going to be vocal, right? And I make the distinction of saying vocal because I know a lot of us use the term nonverbal, but in actual jargon, verbal means not communicating at all, not gesturing, not pointing, which it sounds like to me that your child isn't verbal. If you're looking for that look in the eye, that's suggesting to me that your child isn't verbal. And while we're not going to get all children to be vocal, I don't think that there's an example of any child that's had a really good ABA program for a length of time that has not gotten to the point of verbal. So being able to use assistive technology to communicate, being able to use PECs, being able to use sign, you know, it isn't the same, and I don't want to make it sound like, well, you know, that's the same as vocal speech. It isn't. But when we talk about, you know, really not knowing, and I was in that place for a small period of time with my son, relatively small period of time, where he didn't have functional communication skills, and it was harder than I think I could have dealt with if it had continued. I'm just being honest about that, man. I just don't know how you guys that are in that space manage to keep on plugging every day. And again, so much respect for you, but I hope you're working on the functional communication skills. I hope you're getting help and support. And if you're not, please write to me so that I can help you to find that help and support. And I do want to remind everybody that Skills, which has great lessons for teaching functional communication skills, they have a special right now, buy 1 month and you get the rest of the summer for free. So that for less than $80, you can have the whole summer to have access to those lessons. But we can teach functional communication skills to children, and it's so important that we don't give up on that. But bless you, and bless your patience, man. I so much respect. Another person who said that it's absolutely different and all the typical expectations a mother has with her daughter didn't happen. But it has been wonderful to discover this new world. She amazes me every day. You guys are so inspirational. You're going to make me weep. Another person who says, I have 4 children, one with autism, and I've learned that even though there is definitely a wrong way to parent, there is no right way. Oh, I love that. There is no absolute right way, but there's definitely wrong ways. I think that's a fair thing to say. Each child must have their wants and needs met on an individual basis. And whether a child has special needs or not, a lot of the traditional parenting rules do not apply. It's true. I knew that autism meant a difficult road, but I didn't expect all the joy and fun it brings. I didn't expect it to positively change my view of the world, but it sure has. Oh, that's just lovely. I want to be friends with you. I'm going to make sure I friend that person. And by the way, friend me on Facebook. I'm me on Facebook, Shannon Penrod. But that's just lovely. And I can't get into that space every day, even now. But I think that on my best days, I'm in that place too of realizing, wow, all the amazing things that we've learned as a family and grown through. But there were days when if you had said that to me, I just would have told you to go away. So if you're feeling like that today and going, oh, not feeling the happy flowers and joy and kumbaya of it, please know that I think we all get that. It's difficult. All right. So we have to take a little bit of a break. We're going to come back and do our cognition tip of the week, which is telling white lies. Ooh, very exciting. And don't forget that at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by Sienna Greener-Wooten, who is a wonderful BCBA, and she is the managing director of the CARD Tarzana office in which I'm sitting in, and she was the person, I mean, we had a supervisor, but she was the person above that on my son's case. So to me, she's like, kind of sacred. I try not to be in awe of her. But all good things came from Sienna when it was time for my son to have therapy. So she's going to be with us and talking about what it's like to start an ABA program, what the expectations are, how to get your head ready, how to get your family ready, how to get your house ready, and all of those things. So that will be at the top of the hour. Excited about that. But we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have our cognition tips. So stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, You are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your students' assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our cognition tip of the week. And we've talked about this a little bit before on the show, but one of the things that we want to teach our children about thinking and believing and knowing, which all comes under the cognition curriculum idea, is that sometimes people, well, we all think things and we all believe things, and sometimes we have false beliefs, right? So there's sort of like a string of things around a circle that we need to teach a child before we get to the point of teaching them about white lies, that people don't always tell the truth, that sometimes it's okay to lie. And if you stop and think about it, if that rankles a little bit, I want you to stop and think about, when is it okay to lie? And it's a really important part of the lesson. We also have a lesson about deception that we need to teach children, that sometimes people will be deliberately deceptive. And part of it that we can make it fun and reinforcing for them is by teaching them about white lies and why it's important to tell white lies. I think we have to come to peace and understanding about it first, that why on earth would we teach a child to lie? Well, for self-preservation alone, there are good reasons to lie. But also because when we take perspective, somebody else's perspective, and not being rude. We just talked about recently that my son had a birthday, and that last year, for the first time when I was talking to him and prepping him for the birthday party last year and saying, okay, so you're going to get gifts, and they're not all going to be gifts that you like, and some of them are going to be gifts that you already have, right? And what do you do when you get a gift that you don't like, and what do you do when you get a gift that you already have, right? And he was saying, well, I make sure that I thank them and I don't tell them that I already have the gift. And I was saying, well, why? Why don't you tell them? Because I don't want to hurt their feelings, and obviously they want me to be happy. That's why they went and got me the gift. That's perspective taking, and it's really difficult for our children. And when I tell you that last year when my son turned 8 was the first year that he got that on his own. Now, we didn't start working on it last year. We started working on that when he was 3.5. But it took that long till he got to the point where he really mastered it, and it was his own skill, and he had generalized it to other circumstances and said, I have to be mindful of how other people think. And so in that instance, saying to them, I love this gift, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. If it's something you don't like, or it's something you already have, that's a white lie. And it's important to be able to teach a child to do that and have it be believable. So rudeness. It's going to help with rudeness, right? And taking people's perspective. But it's also going to help for safety and things like that. There are just times when it's not appropriate for us to tell everything that we know, that sometimes we even need to lie, a white lie, in order to be safe. That if a child is alone and somebody's saying, is your mom at home? And they're standing at the door and they've opened the door, right? Which we hope has not happened. But for them to, at that point, to be able to say, yes, my mom is in the other room with the big dog that eats people. Right? It's a white lie, but, you know, a good one that's going to help with self-preservation. So how do we do this? Delicately. We do this very delicately. And again, there are lessons that do this in the skills program. This is how I do it in the skills program, and they have a special right now. You buy the first month and you get the rest of the summer for free. It's really wonderful. It's what I'm doing, and so I do encourage it. But we can do this first in games that we can do. There are card games that we can play where there's, I can't think what the name of it is called. I think it's Oh Spite. I think there are more adult names for it in other arenas. But where the child, I think it's sort of like Go Fish. I don't remember all the rules to it, but where you can challenge somebody. So, you know, with Go Fish, you say, do you have any threes? And the person can say, oh, well, yes, I do have threes, and they give them to you, and that's the end of it. Well, in this game, you say, do you have any threes? And the person can lie if they want to. And so you can say, do you have any threes? And the person says, no, I don't have any threes. And you can look at them and decide whether they're telling the truth or they're lying, and you can challenge them and say, I think you do have threes in your hand, you're just not coughing them up. And if then the child has to prove that they have, there's rules to it. I don't remember exactly what the rules are, but if the child has told the truth and you challenge them, then you lose. And if they lied, then they have to give you the threes. It's something along those lines. But it's really fascinating to watch, you know, and if your child's ever going to play poker, you know, you're teaching them how to have a poker face, how to tell the lie and be believable. Because if we're going to bother to teach white lies, we have to teach it in the right way so that it's really effective. You don't want the child saying, thank you so much for this gift. I like it a lot. I appreciate it. You've given me a wonderful gift, right? They're going to lie. We want them to go, Grandma, thank you so much. I really like it. It's wonderful. And they give the big hug, and Grandma's none the wiser for the fact that it's the exact same shirt that they have in their drawer at home, right? Right? So we teach them using games, and it's really, really fun. It can be a really exciting game to do with a child, and there are lots of different games in which you do it. You make it really reinforcing. There's the famous story here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders about the dad, that his son had the program teaching deception and white lies, and the dad calling into the supervisor's phone in the night and saying, yes, about the deception lesson, well, guess what? He's mastered it. We can move on, and hanging up because the child had lied about something. But I have to be honest with you that when my son lies, I call it to his attention and say, you know what, you just lied about something, and it's really important that you tell Mommy the truth, and that you tell Daddy the truth. And we try to reinforce when he tells us something that you know, would normally be punishable, but he's told us the truth when it would cost him to tell the truth. I try to mediate and reinforce him telling the truth, because really, quite honestly, him feeling like he can come and tell me anything is so much more important to me personally than punishing for a lie. I want to have him be able to come to me. I have friends, and I know I've shared this horrible story before on the air, but I have a friend whose nephew was about the same age that my son is now, and she had an older nephew who had some firecrackers that he was not supposed to have. And the younger son found them, knew that the older son wasn't supposed to have them, and instead of going to the mom, thought it was kind of exciting and went downstairs in the workshop and decided, you know, because at 8 and 9, they don't make the best choices, right? Even when they don't, don't have autism. And he lit the fireworks and then realized, oh my goodness, I'm in the house, these fireworks are going to go off and it's going to be bad. So he tried to smother them with his hands. And at any point, he could have run upstairs and said, I need some help. I've done something that's bad and you're going to be really mad at me and I'm scared about how much trouble I'm going to be in. But he didn't want to do that because he was afraid of the reaction. So he tried to smother it with his hands, and it ended very badly, and he lost several fingers and the use of one of his hands. And I remember thinking about that and thinking, oh, the heartbreak of that mother. And she, said to the son, honey, more than anything else, I want you to know that no matter what happens, you can come to me and you can tell me, and I'm always going to love you. And, there's going to be times when you're going to be punished for things, but it's never going to be as bad as when you don't tell me. And that was a lesson that she had to learn, and I'm trying to learn that lesson with my child before we get to that point. So I do try to, I will say to him, when something happens, I say, I need to know the truth, and you're going to be in less trouble if you tell me the truth right now. And I try to reinforce and praise him and make things good for him telling me the truth, because for me personally, that's more important. You have to decide for yourself, but it is important that they know how to lie, and when to lie, and when it's important and imperative that they lie. It's a skill that you won't ever be sorry that you taught your child. And it will help them in social circumstances. It really will. It is a part of society. If you doubt that, there's a terrible little movie called The Invention of Lying. I don't really recommend it, but if you want to see all the different ways in which lying is important, you can watch a few minutes of it. I really didn't like the movie. But in any case, lying, telling white lies, really, really a life skill that we need to teach with our children, and we need to reinforce it in order for them to maintain it. So that's our cognition tip for the day. Take it and use it as you will. And again, the lessons are available in the skills program, which I'm a big fan of. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and briefly talk about mastery criteria, because at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by Sienna Greener-Wooten. So stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that, they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. Card e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. Card e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use Card e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is time for us to talk a little bit about mastery criteria and how we set mastery criteria. If this sounds like a totally foreign concept to you, let me back up a little bit and say that when we teach our children something, we're charting progress. And as we start to teach, we set a criteria that we say, this is what we think mastery will be. And that when the child masters it, this is our, depending on our criteria, that this is when we say that the child has learned this skill and can do it often enough to please us in the right circumstances. Okay, already so convoluted, right? But imagine that I always say to myself, it's the moment in which we say, by George, I think he's got it, right? And think about ourselves, that let's take the task of putting a key into a lock. I can put a key into a lock, and I know how to put a key into a lock. Does that mean that I am 100% successful all the time with all keys? No, I am not. Sometimes I stick my key in a lock at the door at home and I turn it and it doesn't work, or I put it in upside down, because it doesn't require me to be 100% accurate 100% of the time, right? I can always regroup, and I know the skill well enough that I clearly can say that I have the skill of putting a key into a lock and turning it. Although there are times when certain locks, certain keys, I might require some help. That's just life, right? And it's okay. So for me personally, if we were going to say mastery criteria for me for putting a key into a lock, we might say that I could do it 80% of the time, and that I could do it across several different locks with several different people across different times, so that I can do it on Monday, but I can also do it on Wednesday. And I can demonstrate to you clearly that I'm capable of doing it in this lock versus that lock, with this key versus this key. So that would be how we would set the mastery criteria for me opening a lock. But if I were going to set the mastery criteria for crossing the street safely, would I be okay with setting it at 80%? No way. Right? I need to be able to cross the street 100% of the time safely. It doesn't matter whether it's how big the street is, how many cars there are, what time of day or night. I need it to be 100% of the time in order to survive. So we're going to set mastery criteria at different levels. And sometimes you're kind of setting it with common sense in mind, that you say, all right, here's the skill, and we're going to say that we're going to set the criteria to 80% across 2 sessions with 2 different people. Let's say that we start there, and we'll be doing the lesson with a child and we'll be charting the progress. But if we don't get to mastery in an acceptable amount of time, then we need to kind of go back and look at, all right, what's going on? Why aren't we getting to mastery? Have we set our criteria properly? Is it that we can look at the skill and say, you know what, the child has the skill, but it's not being demonstrated by the criteria that we've put there? We don't ever want the criteria to actually be driving it, but we set it there as a benchmark to say, this is what makes sense, this is common sense, but if you see that, no, I think the child really has it, then you might need to tweak the criteria. So it's sort of like when we try to figure out whether we're in a recession. You can't know you're in a recession until it's passed and they look back at the data, and then they can say, yes, we were in a recession. It's always confusing to me. But there are lots of different things that we want to look at besides mastery criteria when we're not meeting mastery within an acceptable amount of time. And again, different children, different lessons. We can't say, well, mastery should be made, with a lesson within a week. That's not going to apply to some lessons, and it's certainly not going to apply to some children. So a lot of it is gut. You're watching the child, you're seeing how the child is reacting, you're taking the data, but you will see on the data, if a long period of time goes by and you're just not seeing progress, it's time to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but to go back and look at, how are we doing this? Are we doing this in a way that's conducive to the child learning? Does the child actually know the skill, but we've set the mastery criteria too high? Have we set the mastery criteria too low? Did we say that the child mastered the skill, but in reality, when they go to do the skill, they're not able to do it in the way that we really had an expectation that they would? There are a lot of variables in there, but when things aren't working, when the child isn't actually learning the skill, we do need to go back and look at all the different variables. Say, are we using the right materials? Are we trying to teach too fast? Are we trying to teach too low? Do we raise our expectations too high? Do we have all the prerequisites to teach this skill? What's going on that the child is not getting the skill? But don't have the assumption ever that the child can't learn it. That's not a part of our makeup. We're always in the problem solving and saying, okay, we're going to figure out the answer to this. And that's why it's so helpful to be working with a team and to be working with a BCBA, to have somebody that's knowledgeable and experienced who can help you to sort all of that out. But we do want to talk about mastery criteria, and I always say, don't let the tail wag the dog. If you said the mastery criteria was something and you see that the child has the skill but it's not showing up in the data because you set the mastery criteria at a certain level, it's time to reevaluate the mastery criteria, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is teach the skill. The mastery criteria is supposed to help us to do that. If it's not helping, it needs to be adjusted. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Sienna Greener-Wooten, who is a fabulous BCBA, who is a perfect person to be talking to us about ABA, starting an ABA program in our home, and all the different things, the expectations that we can have working with a team of people. So get your questions ready for her. You can, if you're watching us live, you can type them right into the question box, or you could be emailing us, phoning us, or Skyping us with questions. Stick with us. We're going to be back in just a few minutes.
So basically, when we talk about how to teach safety, there are so many levels and areas of safety to teach, but we try to first start off in teaching a simpler level.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say we're trying to teach the child to stay within their yard and not run out of their yard. The first thing that we're probably going to work on is inside, in a more controlled setting, teach them to stop when we say stop. Or come when we ask them to come. And then when they're successful in the structured, non-distracting environment, then we're going to take them outside to the front yard and teach them, okay, when I say stop, you're supposed to stop.
Stop. Good stopping, Jack.
We're also going to make sure that when we initially give them the instruction, we're at a close enough distance that we can help them to stop. So then they don't develop a pattern of running away when we've called them and not stopping. Once they're consistently responding within a close distance, then we're going to gradually increase the distance so that they're responding from a further distance. And then we can also teach some kids that here are your boundaries and this is the area you have to stay in. Or
when we go somewhere, you have to always be able to see me. And let's say, or you have to be an arm's length distance away from me. So teaching rules that the child will follow when they go out in public.
And there are so many different areas. You know, we've been talking about escape and elopement and things like that, but, you know, then there's also stranger danger. And that becomes a dicey thing, and then I think it's individual to each and every family. You know, I know people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers, other people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers unless I'm also talking to them, if I'm talking to them. And then, of course, you know, we have to be careful about teaching them which strangers, because if they're lost, obviously we don't want the kid who's hiding in the bush as the policeman goes by, you know, somebody, how to recognize who in the community. So there are so many different lessons that I can think of that a child has to be taught in order to fully be able to generalize 100% of the time how to behave within a circumstance.
And we go piece by piece then. So for example, with stranger awareness, we could possibly teach it through photographs first and say, you know, is this person a stranger? How do you know that they're a stranger? If they're a stranger, what can you do with them? Like, can you ride home with them? No. Can you accept something from them? No. Well, what if this, you know, giving them many different scenarios, like you were saying, so that they know exceptions of when it is okay and when it's not okay. And then also acting it out as well.
Yeah.
So I say, I'm so-and-so and I'm at the grocery store and I'm offering you a sample of candy, but I work at the store, you know, and mom is with you. So knowing when to make exceptions and when it's okay to do something versus not doing something. And then, of course, sometimes you can also set up a situation. So for example, you tell your best friend that you're going to the store and that maybe your child's never met that person before, and they approach your child and act out something that you've been practicing. And, you know, fortunately, because you've set it up, you know how your child might react if it actually happens.
So that rehearsing something over and over and over again is really going to be key.
It's very important.
All right.
Yes.
Safety, it's the biggest issue. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest in the studio, I'm so pleased, is Sienna Greener-Wooten. I'm always thrilled to have you here, and I know you're busy, so thank you for taking the time to be here. So you are the managing supervisor of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters.
That's right.
Where we're at. And to me personally, I was just saying this before that, you know, and I know I've said this to you before, that when my son was here and getting therapy, you were the top person. All good things came from Sienna. So I try not to be still in awe of you, because truly, you know, you were what was going to make the difference.
Yeah.
You were the end. I mean, there were a whole lot of people in between, but you were the be-all, end-all. So
well, I'm happy to do it.
And you did a great job, I just say, and we're deeply grateful always. But I asked you to come in today to talk about some very specific things, because one of the things that we're always pushing for is for families to get an ABA program in their home in whichever way that they can.
Right.
And that they get the right amount over the right amount of time. And we're always saying, what can we do to help you to do that? But a lot of people want to know, what's it going to look like? What are my expectations? How do I start it? What are the nuts and bolts? And I know when we were in our period of time waiting, we did our intake and waiting to start, I was bugging I'm sure, the you-know-what's out of you, because I kept on saying, you know, what do I do? How do I get my house set up? What's it going to look like? What do I have to buy? He's having a third birthday. What toys do I get? So I thought it'd be really good if we talked about that.
Yeah.
And what families should expect. And so from the very get-go, what kinds of things, if I'm the parent and I've put out the call, I'm on somebody's list, I'm getting ready to start, what are my responsibilities in that period of time that I'm getting ready? What kinds of things should I be doing?
Right. Well, I think really exactly what you just said. So I think it's important as a parent to call, and you're not bugging us. That's what we're here for, is to find out as much as you possibly can about what your life is going to look like over the next year, 4 years, 5 years, whatever you know you're in for.
Yeah.
So you know, I think that's step number one, and don't feel bad about doing that as a parent. It's important. You need to know what you're in for.
Yeah.
And any ABA agency should be able to tell you pretty specifically, these are the things that we're going to need from you in terms of actual materials.
Right.
And, you know, this is how you need to set up the therapy room or your house or, you know, whatever is happening. And then you really just go from there in terms of preparing that stuff and purchasing that stuff. Most families have some sort of a budget too, so I think it's probably important to ask, what are the biggest priorities? So are these things that are going to be needed right now, or down the road at some point? Because you know, you don't have to get it all in the very first second.
Right. Right. I think that's a really important thing to know too. I'm somebody who, if I'm getting ready to do something, I always like to metaphorically sharpen my pencils. I want to have it all set up.
Right.
Because that's something for me to do while I'm waiting. But, and I think you had given me this advice and I didn't listen particularly well. But instead of necessarily, because he was having his 3rd birthday and I was saying people want to get things.
Right.
And you had said ask for gift cards and things like that so that you'll be able to buy things later on.
Right, right.
Because all the kids are different. And instead I went out and, you know, I pushed and pushed and pushed until you said, well, these kinds of things might be helpful. And I went out and got those things and told people to get those things. But I sort of wish that I had taken your first answer, which is gift cards, you know, to a good toy store and also to a learning center place.
Right, right.
Because there are some things you're going to want to buy down the road and they're not all the same for all kids.
Exactly.
And things change
right,
too.
Right. You can have a plan about, you know, the toys that your child is going to want to play with or the skills that you're going to want to teach, but you know, depending on how quickly a child progresses or where they may get stuck, that is going to impact the course of whatever treatment is going to look like, which is then in turn going to affect what you need.
Absolutely. And even technology changes. I remember one of the things that we needed fairly quickly was this very expensive box of flashcards that had a picture of everything known to man. Right. And, you know, and we paid what we paid for them while I sweated while I paid for it. But we got it. And now there's, you know, an app for everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this was just a few years ago, but it feels like it was the dark ages. And now you can make your own flashcards so easily that it's ridiculous.
Right.
So, you know, things change. Things change.
And, you know, you don't have to have the perfect lakeshore set of, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
You know, find out specifically what it is that you need, and then, you know, depending on how much time you have and what your resources are, make your own in a lot of cases. You know, half the time it's, we need pictures of foods. And again, it doesn't have to be that fancy lakeshore food set. It can be go through your cooking magazine and cut out pictures of foods and, you know, put them on little index cards for yourself. It doesn't matter. It's not, you know, how fancy your things are is not really going to impact in terms of those types of things, how well your child does.
You just reminded me, I over the course of when my son had autism, I got rid of all my magazine subscriptions, but I still had stacks of magazines and how much we used those.
So much.
That's a good thing to ask of your friends, that when you're done with your magazines, give them to me so that I can cut them up and use them as stimuli.
And all those catalogs and things that you get, I mean, you need to teach clothing and gender and all of these various things, and you kind of just throw that stuff in the recycle bin and forget about it, keep it, because those things are really, really helpful.
They are really helpful. And I always said too that the digital camera ended up being one of the best things that we had. We were talking about community helpers the other day, and you guys had given me the assignment to take him and go around and take pictures of all the community helpers, and then we were constantly at the Walmart 1 hour photo getting stuff. Because I would be asked to get something and then I wouldn't do it right away. And I'd be like, oh no, they're coming. I gotta have this, or else they're gonna. My homework. Because parents do have homework. And that brings me to my next thing, that you are gonna give. This is not. I have one friend who said, oh, you're so lucky, Shannon, that your son has autism because you have childcare all the time. And I smiled very nicely and said, you need to come and see what it's really like. But what should parents expect in terms of their personal involvement in their lives and their commitment for an intensive ABA in-home?
I mean, I think it's a really important question. You know, everything about your life is going to change dramatically as you know. I think the main thing to realize is that it's a lot of hard work. It's not just somebody coming in and taking your child for a couple hours away from you so that you can do other things and then sending them back and everything is great and, you know, everything is going to maintain away from you. It's not that at all. So I think it's important to realize that you need to be a huge, huge part of whatever's going on. And, you know, everything that the therapists are doing, you're going to be expected to do when we're not there. So you don't have to sit down and go through the flashcards and those types of things, but general interventions and general skills that we're working on, you still need to practice. I think, too, you know, the feedback that I've gotten from parents along the way is the hardest thing, which you would probably agree, is having people in your home all the time. So, you know, you kind of lose your privacy a little bit. Not that people are coming in and going through your things or anything that dramatic, but they're there. And you don't always have a lot of control over who comes in. I mean, you have a pretty regular team generally, but if somebody is sick, then you'll send a fill-in person who you may have never met, and you're expected to just welcome them into your home and send your child away with them, and that's hard for a lot of parents.
Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible. I mean, and it's one of the reasons why I recommend that everybody has a video monitor and baby monitors so that you can be watching and listening, because you're going to learn, and you're also, you know, you're going to be able to quiet that fear of, okay, I just sent my child away with somebody I've never met before.
Some stranger.
I could not have done that. I could not have done that. Video monitor, so important. But yes, opening your door, it was always a thing of, I'm going to open the door and I have no idea who's going to
be there today.
And you know, am I going to love who's there, or am I going to find them very interesting, or, you know, am I going to be glad to say goodbye? What's it going to be? Because everybody is different. And I must say that everybody that we had come to the door was there for the right reason, because you guys pick really well. But that doesn't mean that everybody jives with the way your family is set up. Right?
Exactly.
And that's an important thing. That took me a while to figure out that was okay too. To say, you know, we tried this, and I don't think, you know, the chemistry is there, but not to take anything away from the person, but you know, all people are not going to work in all circumstances. But yes, realizing that people are going to come to the door, and you know, I mean, let's talk nuts and bolts here. You need to budget for more toilet paper. Because, you know, and it's things like that that you wouldn't normally think about, but you do. You need to budget for more toilet paper. People, they're going to come in your home. They're going to use your restroom. You get used to that. And, you know, I won't say that it's not a hurdle that you have to get over, because I think for most of us it's this bizarre thing.
It's very bizarre. You know, for us, as the people coming into your home, we do it all day, every day. So I think sometimes we forget that, okay, this family may not be used to having people come in and out all the time, and you know, there's so many things to consider about going into someone's home. And for a parent, I think, you know, keep an open mind. You know, you can't judge a book by its cover is so true. You know, just the way somebody looks is not going to mean that they're a good therapist or a bad therapist, or that they have experience in one area or not. But at the same time, trust your instincts. You know, if you really feel like this person is not going to mesh well with your child or with your family or with, you know, your own cultural, you know, norms and things that are important to you, then say something. Because they're going to be in your home.
You know, the whole period of time that we were waiting for therapy to start, and, you know, you build up expectations in your head, and I couldn't wait. And the first time that a therapist came to the door, it was before we'd had a clinic. So it was literally the person coming, and we hadn't all met as a team. And I knew that it was somebody who was coming whose name was Peter. And so I was like, a man. We're having a man come to the door. I had no idea. And I had, and he was 3. And I had this expectation of this very nerdy Peter with a clipboard and a little suit. suit without a lapel. I mean, I really had this idea in my head with a shoulder bag of this very nerdy psychologist kind of person coming to the door. And I opened the door to Peter, and Peter was at the, you know, he's still very young, but he was much younger then. And he had very long, curly, black hair, and he was dressed very fun, and he had a big earring, and he kind of looked like a pirate. I think he had like a bandana on. I'll tell you exactly who he looked like, and I welcomed him into the house, had a big personality. He was the genie from Aladdin. That's what I've always described, the genie. I was expecting this very nerdy guy, and the genie from Aladdin showed up at my door and was very loud and came in and was like, dude, everything was dude. And I was going, what on earth? Who is this? And can I just, and I, you know, I said earlier, I refer to him as the Autism Whisperer. He changed our lives. He's a part of our family. Somebody that I will adore forever. And, you know, it kills me to watch old videotapes of him with Jem when he was 3. I can't imagine my life without Peter Farrig in it. But I was expecting this very nerdy person. And can I tell you, years later, that nerdy person that I was expecting showed up at the door. Was there for an overlap, and he came in and was, you know, sat there and watched and did whatever. He didn't end up becoming part of our team. I'm sure that he went on to do great things too. But in the end, I was so much happier that we'd had the genie from Aladdin.
Instead of the nerdy guy. You're gonna get all sorts. And you know, just keep an open mind and see how it goes.
And I also tell that the second therapist to come was Ryan Bergstrom, and he came at the you know, now he's a professional, and but at the time he came in flip flops and a board shorts, and he looked like he was 17. He wasn't. And he ended up being the first therapist who was there during a tantrum, who really gave me the first aha moment when I saw he talked me through something, and I saw how it changed me. And and I had thought, oh, this child.
This is not going to work.
This child that they sent me, heaven help me. What could he possibly know about children and parenting and whatever? And he changed our lives too. So don't judge the book by its cover.
And you know, you brought up a good point. I think that a lot of the therapists that are coming into your home are young. And I think sometimes it's hard as parents to look at this, you know, 20-something-year-old and think that they're going to be able to teach you something about how to deal with your child. Just remember that they should have specialized training, and they do actually know how to teach you various things about your child. So
that are very enlightening, and that can be frustrating in and of itself. And a lot of times, you know, as parents, we will feel frustrated. Like, how did you make that look so easy? And resentful even. That, you know, how dare you, I've been struggling with that for 6 months, and how dare you, you're a child. And you came in and you immediately got my child to do something that I would have sworn to you that my child couldn't do.
And would never do.
That was impossible to do. And you figured it out. And I think it's, I don't know, I think it's okay to have those emotions and if possible, to get to the point where you can laugh about them and go, all right. Well, I guess I don't know.
I mean, it's a huge roller coaster, and I don't even think you're going to be able to know how you're going to feel about all of this stuff. And, you know, resentment is probably one of the more common emotions, and excitement. And, you know, it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened, and probably the hardest thing that a parent has ever done.
I think that's
and just roll with it. And, you know, you have the supports there to help you through these things. So in addition to your therapist, you will have a supervisor and, you know, various people through whatever agency you go with that you can lean on for these various things, and take advantage of that. That's what we're here for.
I just got verklempt, got all emotional, because when you said, you know, it's the best thing that you're ever going to go through, but it's going to be the hardest, that just really rang a chord with me, because I think that's absolutely the truth of what we experience. So we're going to take a little break. I'm going to towel off, and we're going to come back and talk about more nuts and bolts things about starting an ABA program. And don't forget that we're also going to ask Sienna about pill swallowing. So you're not going to want to miss that. Stick with us.
ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, was founded in 2004 by several passionate parents who believe that access to early, effective treatment is vital for individuals with autism. Together with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, the world's leading provider of therapy for autism, this group created Act Today to do just as the name implies, take action immediately to treat autism spectrum disorders.
A lot of families and parents and even physicians don't yet accept the fact that we are recovering children with autism.
In 2006, inspired by her struggle to get treatment for her young son Wyatt, television producer and author Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and her husband Reed hosted a backyard benefit for the foundation called Denim and Diamonds for Autism. Tens of thousands of dollars were raised, and in 2008, Alspaugh Jackson took the helm of Act Today as executive director.
This country has to come together to save a generation of children.
With a dedicated board of directors, a small but committed staff called the A-Team as in autism, Act Today is making a huge difference in the lives of children across the country. Grants that fund programs for behavior therapy, special needs schools and summer camps, medical needs like diagnostic tests and special diets, basic safety equipment such as helmets for children who repetitively bang their heads, and fencing for those who wander, assisted technologies and assistance dogs.
Hi, my name is Max, and I love my iPad too. It's so great. I can take photos.
In 2010, Act for Military Families became the first national campaign to benefit military children with autism.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings.
Act Today continues to educate and raise national awareness on the need for early and intensive intervention for an epidemic that affects at least 1 in 110 children.
I called on November 1st. And I'm like, how am I going to get notified? How are you going to let me know? And they ended up looking and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above.
Act Today, fulfilling its mission of helping families with autism, one child at a time.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest right now is Sienna Greener-Wooten. She is the managing supervisor for CARD Tarzana, the headquarters of CARD, really, right. Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I mentioned before that she was also the managing supervisor when our son was getting treatment here. So she was the be-all, end-all in terms of who we went to for issues involving our son. You were the person who literally did our intake.
Right.
So I've had a long history with her as being somebody who all good things disseminate from. It's, you know, I mean, that's a probably, I think of it as a wonderful place now in our lives because we had such great success.
Yeah.
But that's probably a lot to put on your shoulders on a daily basis.
It's not.
Really?
You know, it's, again, you know, each person's perspective is different given what they're used to and what they do on a day-to-day basis. Right, for me, that's my normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's what I do, and it feels very comfortable to me and very normal. So.
Well, I sort of wish that all of you have the opportunity to be in a room with Sienna or someone at Sienna's level and skill and ability, because I'm still even amazed, you know, when I see you interact with Jem, it's always eye-opening to me, and I go, man, she's just really good. Because you just have a way, you know, you have a confidence that I'm sure is from years of having worked with children, so that you know what you're doing, and it's evident to watch you be with a child, and I just go, okay.
And it's fun, you know.
Well, and there's that too.
I mean, I chose this, you know, this job and this life for a reason, but I love being with kids.
Yeah.
It's like I get paid to play all day long.
Yes.
So it's, you know, it's amazing.
But your play is so productive, Sienna. It's so much more productive than my play. So I just, you know, I'm in awe and trying to learn as much as I can.
Thank you.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about, because we did talk about a little bit of the nuts and bolts of starting and, you know, asking those questions.
Right.
But for parents who are just about to start an ABA program, and we talk about the research all the time, but what have you seen in your years in terms of successes? What do you see on a daily basis? success?
In terms of what contributes to the most success?
Or just outcomes of these kids who get the right amount of ABA for the right amount of time?
Each kid is so different that, you know, their individual characteristics and, you know, just their makeup is certainly going to contribute to what the outcome is going to look like. But, you know, really the most important thing is to, like all the research says, start as early as possible. So as soon as you think that there might be something going on or something is just not quite right, then get moving on it so that you can start some sort of service as soon as possible. So that's definitely the first one. The second one is intensity. So do as much as possible as early as possible. And even though it seems like a very abnormal, very strange life for a young child, and I think it's hard for parents to kind of come to terms with, you know, my 3-year-old is, you know, sitting in a room for many hours a day instead of outside playing on the playground. Your child is different. Your child is going to have to go through different things in order to get where they need to get. So I think that that's kind of hard to come to terms with. And you know, I think the other thing that is so important is parent participation and really learning as much as you can possibly learn about what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're making the decisions we're making, question everything and learn about it so that you can follow up with whatever we're doing.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a thing where for parents when they start, do you guys notice with parents that they're really skittish in the beginning, and do you see a moment when things shift and they become all in? I know when we started, I had read the book A Real Boy, and I was excited and passionate, like start, but I don't think I was really emotionally, mentally 100% full in until I saw the first moment that it worked, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we are.
And I think that is what it is. When you see something that works, or you see somebody work through something with your child that you never thought they were going to be able to do, whether it's a huge tantrum or, you know, learning how to eat a certain food or learning a very simple skill like imitation. I think that's where the buy-in happens. And, you know, some parents come in very gung-ho and they've done their research. They know that ABA works. They've usually done a lot of research on their particular agency, so they feel very confident in their decision of who they've chosen to, you know, to entrust their child to. And so you have their buy-in right from the get-go. Those parents are rare, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I get it. You know, you're a parent, you're not a professional when you first start out. So I think by the end of this, like you become a professional in ABA and you know so much more than you did.
But I always find out on a daily basis how little I know. And more importantly, I think too, on a daily basis now, because we're on our own, we're still using skills, but we're pretty much on our own. And I find out on a daily basis how much I've actually generalized and how much I still have to go back and go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing.
And that's normal, that's fine. You know, even though as a parent you are going to learn how to do things, you're still a parent. And that's always going to be your number one role. The way you interact with your child is always going to be different than the way anyone else interacts with your child, and it should be that way. You shouldn't have to be the teacher and the everything all the time.
But sometimes I do things that I flat out afterwards realize and go, I know better than that. But I remind myself that I had a good 40 years of training a different way that I'm still trying to break. Stupid stuff that I go, well, I know that nagging doesn't work, and yet I insist on doing it.
Right.
And I'm at the point now where I have a child who is so verbal that he'll say to me,
stop nagging.
I don't know why you say that to me. It doesn't work. You're not getting what you want, Mom, but you keep doing it, and yet you aren't getting the response you want. And I go, all
just like we've taught him.
This is my child who's telling me the truth. You know, so anyway, it's all a process, and I don't pretend to know. But I keep learning. And that's the space to be.
We all do. You know, for every child that I work with and every family that I work with, I learn too.
Really?
You know, yeah, still. About, you know, things you should and shouldn't do and what works better than other things.
I guess that makes sense because all of our kids are different.
I've never worked with, in all the years I've done this, and all the kids that I've worked with, 2 kids that are even remotely similar.
Isn't that interesting?
So different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I'm always saying it's really like we're trying to create a tool belt that we can creatively use, not follow a cookie cutter.
Yeah,
thing,
you can't.
There's no way. It wouldn't be effective.
Right.
So in terms of what's your ideal parent to work with?
My ideal parent is one who is going to tell me what their concerns are.
Okay.
Definitely, in terms of, you know, what would make their day-to-day life easier with their child, what their goals and their priorities are.
Okay.
And one who also is going to listen to kind of the dialogue of, here are my thoughts, here's what I think would work, what do you think, are you willing to try this, or is this doable for you? And then one who will give it a shot, because, you know, we're not in your home, we don't know what's gonna, you know, every minute, we don't know what's gonna work, we have many, many ways of accomplishing the same thing, but you need to try it to know if that first option is going to be the best.
Right.
So I think just the, you know, the willingness to be a part of the team and to try it and to communicate effectively is, you know, really, I think, the best parent.
Okay. And then what are the things that are the most detrimental to a good program in terms of parent behavior?
Trying to control every little aspect of your child's program. I mean, it's going to be hell for you, too. So.
Oh, I certainly was guilty of that. You know, I'm a control freak, and I still thought that you know, to the point where it made me nutty. Yeah. Literally. But, you know, and I finally had to realize, I had to get help for it and realize I cannot control everything that he does and everything that's going to happen to him. Right. That took me it was the hardest thing for me to get to acceptance on.
Yeah. And understandably, you know, you're the parent, you're supposed to be the one who, you know, helps and guides and molds and shapes, you know, everything that your child experiences in life when they're young. And then you have this whole set of other adults who do that as well. So, you know, it's understandably hard to let go of some of the control, which is why I think it's so important to really be solid in your choice of an ABA provider. If you don't trust them and you're just taking whatever's, you know, offered to you, then it's going to be difficult to let go of some of that control.
Absolutely, absolutely. So letting go of the control. I know I mentioned this to a parent the other day about how when I would be in the other room and I had the monitor on and my child would start to cry because something was happening and he wasn't being compliant and he didn't like what was happening and he hadn't figured it out, and how difficult it was, but that I made the agreement in my head that I would never intercede.
Right.
Never intercede, and that they were saying that they're having a hard time not going in the room and saying maybe it's time for a break.
Right.
And that's a really hard thing, but I promised myself, and there were more than one occasion when my husband, you know, sat on me and said, you're not going in there. You're not going in there. You're not going to save him. Nothing bad is happening to him. He will be okay.
Right.
And that I would have to literally sit there and remind myself, this is difficult for him. It's not the end of the world. But he has to get this. And if I go in, it's going to take that much longer.
Yeah.
Do you have parents who want to come in, burst in? And
all the time. And usually it's because there's a little bit of a lack of understanding as to why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's probably hard to hear your child cry no matter what, even if you fully understand what's happening and you know what you going in is going to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when parents do come in and haven't yet gotten to the point where you got of, I need to not do this, it's because they don't understand why their child is crying and what happened to lead to their child crying and what's going to happen in the future when their child cries in those, you know, certain circumstances. So that's really where it's our job to train parents and to make sure that they understand exactly what to expect. So when I do this, your child is likely to, and if you do this, here's what's going to happen.
Here's
if
what
you
you're taught
don't,
them.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, we're big fans of the A word, and I was showing Jem, my son, on my phone. It was one night we were laying on his bed, and I was showing him an episode of the A word to see what he thought of it.
Yeah.
And the therapist that's in it was one of Jem's therapists as well. So he was watching the little boy, Jack Riley, and watching the mom talking about he'd had a rough day in therapy, and the mom was saying, oh, it was really hard to not go in. And he was asking questions about, well, why is the mom so upset? And I said, because her little boy was crying in the other room and she felt bad and wanted to go in, but she didn't. And at first, when he was looking at the video, he said, is that me? And I said, no, that's not you. And he said, well, wait a minute, are you sure? Oh, sorry. And I said, no, that's not you. That's another boy. And he said, but I recognize her, the therapist. And I said, yeah, but it's another little boy who's having therapy like you did with her. She goes to other people's homes too. And so, but then we were talking about the mom and why was she having these emotions? And he said to me, so Mom, when I was having therapy, were you outside the door crying too? And I said, yes, if you were crying. Sometimes I was outside the door crying too. And he said to me, oh, Mom, I was okay. I was just frustrated. I was just frustrated. And I thought, how amazing, because that used to be one of the things that I would sit outside the door and think, oh,
what is he thinking?
What is he thinking? And does he feel like I abandoned him? I'm a terrible mom. And someday, you know, he's going to be someplace and say, you were a terrible mom, that you made me go through this. And here we were, he was 8, and he said, no, I was just frustrated. If somebody could have told me that when he was going through it, that someday he was going to say, I was frustrated. I was okay.
And really, you know, what the long-term outcome of all that is going to be too. So it's important to know that if your child is having a tantrum with some particular task, or because, you know, something didn't go the way they wanted it to, that shouldn't be happening forever. Those things should be fairly temporary. If you have problem behaviors that are persisting in therapy especially, then you know you probably need to make some sort of a change to how you're dealing with those problem behaviors or the tasks you're working on, because it's not forever. It shouldn't be forever. We don't want more problem behaviors to happen as a result of us.
I think, you know, most of the time, when your child is getting ABA therapy, you know, we always said that if he's not running to the door going, who's there, then something's not entirely right. And that was the vast majority of our therapy, was that he was running to the door. Now, towards the end, he'd had it. And I think that, you know, everybody said that we would get to a point where we would know that we were close to the end. And I, you know, in the beginning, I was like, how quick can we do this? How quick can we do this? And then we got about 3 years in, and I started to think, oh man, someday they're not going to come anymore. And then where are we going to be? And everybody said, don't worry, because he'll be ready. And towards the end, he was like, really? I'd rather be outside playing with my friends. And I would go, wait a second, how did we get there? How did we get there? A whole lot of work. Whole lot of work.
And that's what you want. You know, you start out and you think, how am I ever going to have all these people in my home all the time? And then, you know, years down the road, it's what am I going to do without all these people in my home all the time? So it's an interesting transformation, I think, that parents go through throughout their life with therapy.
Well, and I was saying to Sienna before, when she was coming in and sitting down, that we're a year out now, and that it just keeps changing in terms of what I think and how I look at him and some of the different things I see in him. It's a fascinating journey. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to ask Sienna about the pill swallowing question that we got. So stick with us. It's really going to be informative.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings. Military families impacted by autism wage a battle on 2 fronts. One for their country, and another for their children.
I know you God knows we're in a battle zone. Well, I'm fighting the war back here, and I'm fighting it all alone.
With 1 in 88 military children diagnosed with autism, the families face extraordinary challenges. But there is hope. With intensive treatment, the lives of children with autism and their families can be changed. You can make a difference.
The day we've all been waiting for. Maybe
to learn how you can help a military child with autism, go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org. Thank you.
Maybe tomorrow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and our special guest right now is Sienna Greener-Wooten. She is the managing supervisor of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters here in Tarzana, in the building that we're in. And as I mentioned before, she was the managing supervisor at the time that my son was getting therapy here. So heaven knows, and I talk all the time about how grateful I am you guys gave me my son back. So when people say, oh, you're a fan of CARD, I go, yes, make no mistake. I have good reason to be. I got my child back there. But we had a question that came in the night, a parent who said that they're using skills, loving skills, but they're particularly interested in information about pill swallowing, that their child is taking a bunch of medicine and that they could use some help and support in that arena. And I thought you'd be a great person to talk about that. We always say that we don't give child-specific advice because that would be a disservice to any child. We're not saying to do that. But some helpful tips about some of the different ways in which parents have gotten success with pill swallowing. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so number one, pill swallowing is a tricky one because you're dealing with something that could be very, very dangerous. If you know, your child chokes, or if you think that there's a possibility that your child is going to choke. So you want to make sure first that there aren't any physiological issues with being able to swallow foods and pills and those types of things. So, you know, if that's an issue, then I probably wouldn't even go any further. You'll probably want to consult with a medical professional first, or someone who has a lot of experience with children that have these physiological, you know, difficulties to begin with.
But if your child is eating normal foods
and has
chewing
no issues,
and has no issues, then what can you do?
With this one, it's really the same as any other skill. So you want to start, you know, at the very, very beginning. So a lot of the times, you know, vitamins are huge. They're, you know, it's scary to think of, you know, even an adult swallowing these huge pills. It's a long process, I think, is the first thing to know, because you have to start at the very, very beginning. And really what we do is we've, you know, for the children that we've done pill swallowing with, is we've broken down things that are able to be swallowed without any harmful effects. And figured out sizes to start with and kind of very gradually increasing those sizes. So the first thing we typically start with is like a half of a lentil, like a dry lentil. And those things are tiny. And there's no problem swallowing a lentil as long as you don't consume large quantities of dried lentils. You're probably fine. So we start there and teach the child first to swallow that. Each child is different. Most kids will swallow the lentil without even knowing that they're swallowing it because it's so tiny. You reinforce that, and then you keep going until they're not scared of that anymore, and you move up to the next size. Some kids have a lot of difficulty with you even putting something foreign into their mouth. So if you have that sort of an issue, you'll want to figure out how to tackle that first. And I wouldn't even deal with anything in terms of pill swallowing if you have that issue. Just get your child okay with being able to put things into their mouth that are edible, that they may not have had before, something that's not going to taste weird or yucky or that you know they're going to hate. And just get them to trust you.
Because it's a one dry lentil doesn't have any taste.
And then you move up, and then you move up to things that are like the size of a little Tic Tac, those little, you know, breath mint things. And you pick, you know, what things you're okay with your child consuming that are specific sizes. And the key is to do it gradually to get your child to let you put it in their mouth, or even better for them to put it in their own mouth, to swallow it with liquid and reinforce that, and then you move on until you get to the size of whatever pill you want your child to be taking.
And there are even empty capsules that you can buy so that you can get that opportunity that you guys always talk about, that, you know, the more opportunities that you have, and obviously you don't want to give the same vitamin 12 times in one day, but you can get an empty capsule and try it 12 times in one day, and it's not going to
and you can fill it, you know, with various things. I think, I'm not even sure what we filled it with. It might have just been like cellulose or some powdery type thing, so that the weight of the actual capsule is the same. And you can buy fairly small gelatin capsules, but we tend to go even smaller than that, which is where like the lentil comes in, because those things are tiny. And just work up from there.
Okay, now where are you on the cups? There are a couple of different cups that manufacturers make. There's one that's the nose cup I've never figured out how to use the nose cup. It's got a cutout for the nose. I never found that to be a problem. And then there's another one that looks like a sippy cup that you can put the pill in. That mystified me too, although I know a lot of parents say that was helpful to them. Do you even bother to use anything like that when you're doing it?
I haven't. I haven't had a lot of kids who were very, very resistant to this. Once you really broke it down and started at the beginning, it ended up not being a huge issue. It's when you get to, really large size things, like kids that have to swallow the pill cam for any sort of, camera in there.
Stuff.
Those things are big, and it doesn't look like a pill. It's kind of scary looking.
I could think that adults would kind of balk at that.
I don't know if I'd be okay with that either. So for that, you may want to try different cups and different things if it doesn't go well. But
one of the things that and everything that you talked that really jumps out at me, because it's what made the difference for Jem. I think finding your moment too is ideal, and we just hadn't pushed it, and then a friend of his, and we were having a play date, and the friend's mom had said, he just started being able to swallow his pills, and he got this big treat for it, and Jem looked at me like, well, excuse me,
why haven't you done this for me?
Where is my treat? And I was like, okay, this is the moment then. He's sort of asking for it. And I said, all right, well, if we go home and if you're able to take your pills like your friend, then we'll do this. And it was done.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Like I was mentioning with kids who have trouble swallowing just in general, and you want to make sure you deal with that issue first. Any issues you can foresee that have nothing to do with actually swallowing a pill, but that are present, like non-compliance, like not wanting to put things in their mouth that aren't their most preferred foods, whatever it is, deal with that stuff first before you even then move on to swallowing pills.
Because then it's not the battle.
Exactly.
You never want to be involved in the battle.
Exactly.
I know one family that here in Southern California that it was such a big deal that there was a child that had to take so many pills. And it was such a big deal, and it was a drag for everybody. And so the deal was that if the first time he swallowed a pill, they would stop everything and go to Disneyland. It didn't matter what day it was, that they would leave. And if it was at nighttime, they would go and get a hotel room. And I think it was less than a week after they put that rule in force that he swallowed the pill, and the whole family, you want to talk about reinforcing, because the whole family was like a party, and they went right from the pill swallowing to the car and followed through on it, which you have to be willing to follow through. But I always think of that and think, sometimes it's really about the reinforcement.
It's always about the reinforcement, and that's the important part. So set the expectation. Give them what needs to happen and what they're going to get for doing it, and do it.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that'll work, and for you watching at home and writing to let us know about your success. Thank you so much for being here today. It is always such a pleasure to have you come in and talk, and I hope we can have you again soon, although I hate to pull you away from the other things.
It's okay. This is fun.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back to finish out the show, so stick with us. Hi, we're here with Sue Cho, and she holds a lot of different jobs and responsibilities at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're going to have her help us with learning about nonverbal imitation and how we teach it to our children. But first, Sue, what do you do at CARD?
I'm a senior clinical supervisor, so I supervise children's cases. I'm also with the training department and provide training to the supervisors, people that are becoming supervisors or current supervisors. And then I also provide workshop services for children all over the world when they don't have access to a CARD site.
Great.
Nonverbal imitation is being able to copy the actions of another person.
You can do nonverbal imitation. What can you then go on to do?
Just about everything, because when people are social beings, and we learn what to do by observing other people. When we look at children learning how to play, they are copying things that are going on in their everyday lives.
So how do we go about teaching this?
So when we first teach it, you want to start off at the most concrete level, which is copying the use of an object. You can actually touch it, you can feel it, you can see it. So for example, picking up a telephone. The child has their phone, I have my phone, and I would just pick it up and say, do this, and then the child has to copy by picking up the phone and just putting it up to their ear.
And if they don't do it,
then I would assist them. So I would first show them, do this, and then I would put it in their hand and then hold it up to their ear.
And praise them for when they do that.
And then we also want to make sure too that they're not putting the phone up to their ear when I've asked them to do something else. To start, we're just going to have the phones out, and the only thing that they can pick up is the phone. Then eventually I want to get to the point where I put other things out as well, and that they then realize that even with all these other things out, they're still able to pick up the phone when I pick up the phone. The focus of this lesson is that they observe what I do and then they copy what I did. Then we teach other items too, because we want to teach them to do multiple objects and also eventually doing multiple things with an item. So for example, let's say initially I'm teaching them to pick it up and just hold it up to their head. Maybe I also want them to understand that, oh, you dial the phone. So I might say, do this, and the child picks it up and then pretends to dial. And then eventually we start putting the actions together so they have more of a multiple sequence of activities going on so that we can teach them how to play. So for example, if I have a car, I might teach them that, okay, I'm going to start up the car. Vroom, vroom. The child imitates the sound if they have the capability of doing that. Then I'd say, okay, we're going to roll it over to the store so we both park. And then, okay, now I'm going to crash into the wall. And the child crashes into the wall so that we're able to teach multiple step sequences.
Okay. And it sounds like, again, key is getting preferred items to do this with and making it fun.
Yes. Most definitely.
Not making it boring.
Yes, we want to make it interesting for the child because then they're more likely to attend and want to do it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here at the end of the program, and of course, and my apologies, I just saw that somebody had sent in a question, and I was busy talking to Sienna, and I didn't see it, and she had to leave to go to a meeting. So I'm going to ask her this question, and I'm going to ask some other people the rest of the week. But the question was, hi, I heard you discuss that a parent's interaction with his or her child will be different from any other person. Do you think a parent, especially mom, can be an efficient therapist just like any other therapist in a child's team? Excuse me. And I'm definitely going to be asking the experts this, but from having talked to the experts quite a bit, I hear that one of the things that they say is that while it is absolutely imperative that a parent be a part of the team, that it's really imperative that there be other people on the team as well. That's one of the things that I hear them saying all the time, that it can't just fall to one person. If it needs to be mom and dad, then that is, if that's the best possible scenario because you don't have other therapists, then it is what it is. But I think we can all admit that, and I certainly as a parent can tell you that I have a history with my child. I have baggage with my child. I can be very effective and very efficient, and sometimes I'm the person in the room that has the gut feeling about what needs to be done, but that sometimes a complete and total stranger who's even a beginning therapist can get to it faster than I can. Faster, not necessarily instead of, but faster because they don't have the baggage. That my son and I have to get through the fact that, you know, he's upset with me about the fact that I sent him to bed last night and he didn't get to have cashews before, and that's literally what happened last night. You know, and I know when I get home this afternoon, we're going to have a discussion about it because he was ticked when he went to bed. So, you know, I've got baggage to work through that the therapists don't. So they're going to get to it quicker sometimes. That doesn't mean that I can't also be efficient, but that I got to understand that I've got baggage with my child that has to be worked through, and it's going to get bumpy and in the way from time to time. But it's so important that we be on the team, that we be as effective and as efficient as possible. But if you're setting up the dream circumstance, there's at least one person on the team who is not a regular person in the child's life that comes and goes in the child's life so that there isn't room for as much baggage. baggage. And I'm going to guess that the experts are generally going to agree with me there, but that isn't all of our stories at this point in time. So you work with what you have, you do what you can, and you make yourself as efficient as you possibly can. Right now, it's just me and my husband working with my child, and I just accept that, yes, there is baggage, and I just got to get through it and know that that's part of our relationship, and it's going to be different. Now, there are some things where I'm going to be more efficient and I'm going to be more effective because I know him. So, you know, a little bit of a trade-off, but I do think it's advisable to have, if you can, whether it's a volunteer or a part of your family that doesn't live in your home, come in and work with a child. It can be a really useful thing to have on the team. But I will ask Sienna that question and have her send us a response. And I'll also be asking the rest of our experts what they think throughout the rest of the week. We're here towards the end of the show, and I hope that you guys have gotten some good information today, in particular about pill swallowing, but I also hope that if there are things that we're not covering, that you'll participate with us and let us know what those things are. There are lots of different ways to interact with us, and we'll start to show some of those on the screen for you. If you're watching the show and it's a different time there, or we're not on live there, then please email us and let us know your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, your suggestions for topics that you'd really like to see covered that you're just not seeing covered. Or tell us, you know, this topic, when you covered it, really helped me out. I'd like to see more things like this. That will really steer us in a direction. You can phone us, you can Skype us, you can Facebook us, you can tweet with us, all of those wonderful ways that you can communicate with us. You can even snail mail us, for heaven's sake. We appreciate that as well. We are housed in the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. You can go to their website at www.centerforautism.com. We also want to remind you, and are reminding you, that there are lots of different ways that you can watch our show on Blip TV, on YouTube, on iTunes. All of those different ways are available to you. Ustream as well. And we are free in all of those places because we know that getting this important information should not tax your wallet any more than anything else does. So you've got enough. So in any case, we hope that you will participate with us and that you will take the opportunity to try it out. Ask me a question and see if I get you a good answer, right? And if I don't, you can tell me so. But give us a try. It's free. How often do you get that offered to you? So please participate with us. I also want to let you know some of the things that are coming up the rest of this week. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We just particularly love Wednesdays, don't we? And we have Evelyn Gould will be with us during the 10 o'clock hour. And Evelyn is so wonderful. She's a BCBA who talks from a position of taking into consideration where the parent is on any given day. Because we do have to be important parts of this team. As Sienna was saying, you know, the therapists are going to come in, they're going to start the work, but they're going to leave, and we need to uphold it. And if we don't, our child loses ground. Our topic all this week has been maintaining progress. The therapist come in and works on something and start something. We need to continue that work through the hours the rest of the day until the therapists come back the next day. Really important that we're able to do that. And sometimes we have we've got dishes to do and we have laundry to do, and the therapist didn't have to do that, right? And it's harder. It is harder for us because we do have the baggage and we've got all the other day-to-day things to do with our child. And Evelyn helps us to sort that out, which is a lovely thing. And then at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays, we of course have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My wonderful co-host, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, comes in for that hour. Another busy woman. She's the executive director of Autism Care and Treatment today, but she comes in so we can have fun and interview wonderful people. We're having the dad who, the author of Carly's Voice, with us tomorrow, so that's something to look forward to, especially for those of you who have children who are non-vocal. This is a dad who's got a story to tell that I think you'll really, really appreciate. We always cover news stories and try to cover something fun that's going on. We're hoping to get one of the speed gamers on with us on Skype tomorrow. Of course, they're very busy. As I mentioned earlier, you can visit www.thespeedgamers.com. They're playing Pokemon in a marathon right now for you, because all of the money that they raise goes to Autism Care and Treatment Today. They're about to open another grant phase, and we want as much money in that account to give away as possible. So Skype about it, Facebook about it, tweet about it. The Speed Gamers are raising money for autism right now. They were at $29,000 this morning, and I'm sure it's gone up since then, so support them if you can. We will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. live. Please join us then. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug for me. Bye-bye.